Okay. I'll wait until 1 o'clock to officially start, but we'll go live.
Thank you.
Get the technology ready.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tim, I didn't know if you wanted to be in it or if you wanted to wait in the waiting room. Are you okay right there?
Tim's.
He's okay.
I figured he needed to be in there. So.
He wants to be a part of the party.
He wants to grow up and be a pensioner one day.
I do.
Absolutely. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to call the Augusta Pension Committee meeting to order Tuesday, February 16, 2021 at 1 p.m. Chair recognizes Madam Clerk.
The first item on our agenda is the presentation of the fourth quarter ending December 31st, 2020 investment report for the 1945-1949 pension plans, along with the January 2021 update. Heather Siegler from Morgan Stanley.
Heather, thanks so much for joining us. Heather, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Does everyone have a copy of my presentation? I sent it over last week, so I hope you all have a copy for the end of the year. Perfect. Great. If we'll flip over to page 2, there you go. We'll talk about the markets overall. I'll give you kind of an update on where we ended for the end of the year. We'll talk about the portfolio and the market overall, if that's okay with you.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. All right, so if you take a look at the page we have here, we've given you just an idea of where we ended the year for the year. What a crazy year we had with the markets overall. If you kind of go backwards and then we'll talk about where we ended up. But if you look at where the market was in the beginning of the pandemic through the March and April timeframe, at one point, the U.S. markets were down around 34%. And so to come through the year that we've had has been just an amazing year. If you look on the page you have there, you can see the S&P 500 ended the year up 18.4%. That's going to be the largest U.S. stocks. Your mid-cap stocks, which we use the Russell Mid-Cap Index, look at that. So mid-sized companies up 17% for the year. And then the smallest companies in the U.S., Russell 2000, up 19.96% for the year. And so we just look at the rally that we've had. There's a lot of optimism coming through, especially towards the end of the year. We had, $900 billion stimulus package. We've also had vaccines that were being distributed, and we're starting to see that continue to ramp up. It's given a lot more optimism in the market than we had really throughout the summer timeframe. We're starting to see that reopening trade. The market is continuing to have been resilient. If you look at and you think about where we were from an economy standpoint in the year of 2020, unemployment, we can't really talk about the markets or the economy without talking about unemployment. And in 2020, we had the lowest on record in the last 50 years unemployment at 3.5%, and then the highest employment rate at 14.7% for both in the same year in 2020, which is just an unbelievable statistic. And then you think about a couple other things, and this is amazing to me that we had one of the lowest birth rates in 2020 that we've seen since they started tracking this. And so the birth rate was only at 0.35% for the year. So we're kind of expecting that to, that trend to change, but just an interesting little notation for the year from a growth standpoint. And then you think about housing prices and interest rates overall. And so when you look at the interest rates on a 30-year fixed mortgage rate last year, they were some of their lowest at really hit their midpoint or low point at right before the end of the year at Christmas at 2.66%. They've come up a little bit since then, but that's given a lot of optimism for the housing market as well. we talk about, let's go to the next page and let's look at where the international markets were. And so we really look at that through the MSCI, the developed international markets, looking at the EPA index for the 12 months, up 7.8%. If you look about 2/3 away down the page, the emerging markets for the end of the year up 18.69%. We are seeing a little bit of weakness in the dollar, which should be positive for the international markets going forward, where I'm starting to see that indicator, really starting to play through, especially since the end of the year. And then if we flip to the next page, you can take a look at interest rates and where we ended up when we look at the fixed income market. If you look at the Bloomberg Barclays Aggregate Index, which is what we use to measure the overall fixed income market in the US, ended the year at 7.5%. The Fed has remained very accommodative. On an interest rate standpoint, we've had very, very low interest rates. We actually had 2 Fed cuts in the middle of the pandemic. And so interest rates have remained low, and we are expecting that to maintain that. At one point in the summer, we actually had 10-year treasury rates at 0.5%, which is the lowest that they have actually been in the 230 years since we started tracking them. And just an amazing year that we have from an interest rate standpoint. We are starting to see, and we have seen since the end of the year, interest rates are starting to pick up a little bit. That's just the open market, just making that decision that interest rates are going to go a little bit higher. We actually see that as a little bit more of our, really kind of reminds us that our growth story is still in play, and interest rates are telling us that we should have a good year in the market. Because if you look at where interest rates are, they are picking up a little bit, but that's exactly what we would expect to see this time in the market, in this cycle of where we are in the economic cycle. Look at the summary of data. This is just giving you a look at the 1949 plan. If you take a look right hand side of the top, you can see we started the year at $72,008,976. We had transfers out to pay pension benefits of $5,755,216, and an investment gain for the fiscal year of $8,619,674, which gives us to that ending market value of $74,873,434. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see the breakdown of assets. On the top, it gives you the distribution by dollar amount. And then on the bottom, you can see it by percentages. And so if we look at the end of the year, we had domestic equity exposure of 60% and international exposure at 15%, giving us a total equity of 75% at the end of the year. And fixed income exposure at 24.5%. A little bit of cash. We always keep cash on hand to be able to make sure and pay those benefits. So we normally calculate that out, make sure that we've got enough on a quarterly basis to send that out. Any questions on this page before I move on to the next? Okay. All right. Take a look at the next page, and this is going to be the same for the 45 plan, but I'll go through it for the 49. You can take a look at the performance by manager. And so we have 6 active managers here on target for you. You've got your large cap value manager. Fiscal year to date actually was down 1.4%. And one thing I will mention is that it was a really tough year for value stocks. The growth stocks were what really performed well. And you can see that when we look at some of the other managers, but just a really tough year. Value stocks did not perform well last year. We have started to see that reverse towards the end of the year, and it's continuing to reverse now through February. So that just kind of reminds us that you've got to have diversity in your portfolio, because not all areas of the market are going to go up at the same time. And when we take a look at your next manager, which is a large cap core manager, so they have more growth assets. They were up 22% for the fiscal year, 22.13 specifically. Your next manager we have is MDT, which is going to be your all cap core manager. They're going to have some large and mid-sized companies in there as well, up 22.6%. Your international, we have your 2 international managers, Lazard and then Thornburg. Lazard was actually up 9.6% for the fiscal year. And I should have mentioned they were ahead of their benchmark, and Thornburg was as well. Thornburg was up 22% for the fiscal year, ahead of their benchmark. Of all of the managers, you only had one of your managers that was slightly behind their benchmark, and that was NFJ. All of your other managers were ahead of their benchmark for the year. The next page will give you a look at your fixed income manager. which is PIMCO, for the fiscal year up 8.4%. Ahead of their benchmark, which brings you for the total plan performance with the little bit of cash that we had on hand for the fiscal year. 1949 plan was positive 13.52%. A great year considering the rocky road we started off to. Any questions on the 49 plan before we move on to the 45? Okay.
Any questions from any members of the pension committee? Any questions? All right, Heather, please proceed.
Okay, if we'll go one more page, we'll look at the 1945 plan. Oh, excuse me, I did want to look at the update here. This is the update through January. I wanted to bring this in, and I've got an update for you actually through the close of business on Friday as well. January, the market actually pulled back a little bit, and the market was down about 1%. And you can see that there if you look at the update through January. The 49 plan was down about 1.2%. That has reversed itself. And through Friday, the plan is actually positive. Let me give you the actual number, 2.8%. And so that 1.2% down has reversed its course, and we're now positive 2.8% for the 49 plan. All right, and on the 45 plan, look at the same data that we had, very similar from a performance standpoint. But if we take a look at the beginning market value, we had just over $5,760,154 at the beginning of the year. We transferred out to pay pension benefits, $643,813. And we had a net investment gain for the year of $592,177, which brings us to that ending market value of $5,708,518. Left-hand side, you can see, you'll notice that this plan only has domestic equity assets valued at 55% at the end of the year, and then fixed income at 44.76% and a little bit of cash on hand. This is a small plan as deemed by Georgia Code, so we're not allowed to have international exposure in the smaller plans. Next page will give you the breakdown of performance by manager. And so you can see on the fiscal year, NFJ, that large cap value manager, down 1.17%, a little bit behind their benchmark. The remaining managers are all ahead. At Atlanta, your large cap core manager up 22.26%. MDT, your all cap core manager up 22.6%. Your fixed income manager 8.34%, and giving you a total with the cash that we had on hand throughout the year for the fiscal year up 11.8%. Again, a great year considering the environment that we came through. I'll give you the update. This just gives you a detailed historical cash flow. Next page just gives you the update through January. You can see, again, this plan was a little bit negative through January, down just under 1%, and that has reversed as well. Through February, that plan, your plan for the 45 plan is actually up 1.9% through February. Any questions on the 45 plan?
And that, yeah. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Any questions? All right, Heather, please proceed.
Okay. All right. So that concludes the portion of the presentation that I have for you for both of the plans. If there are any questions for me, after the meeting, certainly I'm happy to sit down and meet with any of you, go through anything. I know that we have new pension committee members, so I'd be happy to go through the portfolio for you on any of the managers or any of the total portfolio. One thing I also wanted to mention is we're at that kind of time point where it makes sense for us to review and update our investment policy statement. So I'd like to be able to present that to you for an update at the next meeting. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to send that out to you via email after this meeting. So it gives us plenty of time for us to talk about it if you have any questions, and then have you plenty of time for you to review it and for us to be ready to discuss it at the upcoming meeting when we go through the first quarter results, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Donna?
I'll email to you.
I was just gonna make a motion to receive the report as information.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you. All right. Without objection, we'll receive his information. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gather.
All right. Our next item.
Next item is to receive as information the amount of the 1.4% for COLAs for the 1945 and 1949 pension plan, according to plan documents in the amount published by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
Donna,
Yes, sir.
who's presenting on this one?
That would be me.
Okay.
And essentially, all the information is included in the motion. The plan documents specify that beginning March the 1st of each year, that the cost of living raise be given in the amount that is published by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics for the fourth quarter of the previous year for the CPI for the South region. That amount was 1.4%, and that amount will be increased on the pension benefit checks that go out March the 1st to the 45 and the 49 pension plans recipients. It's pretty much just an information, sir.
Okay, so we'll receive his information as
Mr.
well.
Mayor,
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I have a
Go
question.
ahead,
And I
sir.
guess I asked a question because I'm just ignorant right now as to how this works. That 1.4 comes out of the pension plan itself, or it comes out of our budget?
It comes from the funds that you just saw presented from Ms. Siegler from the pension plans. Should,
Okay.
you know, and
Uh,
at the end of the day, should those plans ever come up short, it falls back to the government. But there
Yeah.
are sufficient
So
plans in sufficient funds to make these payments, which are required according to the
Yeah.
plan documents.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it doesn't come out of our general overall accounts from the city.
Now, your regular required overall pension contributions do come from the funds from the city that are your employer portion to keep this plan fully funded.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll receive this as information and we'll formally adopt this in a commission meeting. Is that correct, Donna?
Yes, sir. I mean, it doesn't necessarily require adoption. It's already included in, it's just a matter of process and me bringing that information forward so that you guys can know
Okay.
about it.
All right, very good. Well, we'll receive this information again.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there any other business before us?
I believe that's it, sir.
All right, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you.
and move you in there too.
All right. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. We are here to do the people's business, and we call the February 16th, 2020 commission meeting to order. Chair recognizes Madam Clerk.
Thank you, sir. We will have our invocation by Commissioner Francine Scott, after which we'll ask Commissioner Brandon Garrett to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Will you please stand?
Oh Lord, we are so glad that you look at our hearts, not as man do, but with love. You taught us to love you first, and when we love you first, then we can really love others. Please clean our hearts and contrite hearts on today. Give us a pure heart so that we can see you. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
I pledge
allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag
of the
of the
United States of America
and to the republic
for
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty,
and justice for all.
Thank you to the commissioner from the 9th for that invocation and the commissioner from the 8th for our pledge of allegiance. There was an addendum agenda that was sent out this afternoon. 3 items. One is a revision, which is the submittal to the revised resolution. And then there is the addition to the agenda around receiving an update from the commissioner from the 1st, and then a deletion from the agenda. If there's no objection, we'll add these to the agenda as noted. All right, without objection. All right. All right, chair recognizes Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if you don't mind, just, pause for a moment. Yeah, let's.
Are we ready now?
Okay, let's proceed.
Okay. Call your attention to the recognition portion of our agenda. Today, we would like to offer congratulations to Natasha Daly as Augusta Employee of the Month for January 2021. Mr. Mayor, the Employee Recognition Committee has selected Natasha Daly as Augusta, Georgia's Employee of the Month for January 2021. She was nominated by Takia Dowse, Director of Central Services. Natasha has served the citizens of Augusta for the past 4 years as the Central Services Administrative Assistant to the Director. Her presence and involvement in every Central Service matter ensures the consistent service level promised through our mission, providing red carpet service. Ms. Daly acts as a resource for information for all those needing Central Services assistance and has proven over the years her value and dependability in more areas than one. Ms. Daly is reliable, detail-oriented, and committed to excellence in everything she does. As a true team player, she always puts her best foot forward and excels in areas of responsibility as well as areas outside of her scope of duties. She is often called the right hand of the director and a trusted contact for many other Central Services employees, in addition to the employees of Augusta. This accolade and recommendation by no way reflects Ms. Daly's daily contribution to her department, yet highlights an amazing project success due largely in part to her involvement. Based on this nomination, Natasha Daly's outstanding contribution to Central Services and her service to Augusta, Georgia, the Employee Recognition Committee would appreciate you in joining us in recognizing Ms. Daly as the January 2021 Employee of the Month.
Would you all join me in congratulating Ms. Natasha Daly for her great work? Ms. Daly, thank you for your service to the city of Augusta and all of her residents. I've had an opportunity to meet you and see you in action, and you are certainly well worthy of January 2020 Employee of the Month. Thank you to all you do, and look forward to your continued service in the city of Augusta. All right.
I see Ms. Ruckett's there, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if she had anything to add.
No,
Right, Ms.
ma'am, I
Rooker.
did not.
Okay.
All right, is her immediate supervisor, her director, Ms. Dowse? Okay, maybe Ms. Dowse has something to say. I'm gonna give her an opportunity. Let's bring Ms. Dowse in.
Now, and to be honest with you, that real talk. We don't need all no folks.
Okay, Ms. Dowse?
Yes, good afternoon.
All right. All right, so we've just recognized Ms. Daly and didn't know if you wanted to share some words about her as Employee of the Month as well.
Sure, I would. Good afternoon, Commission, as well as Mayor. Natasha Daly, as I said in my write-up, has been a pillar for the Central Services Department.
Ms. Dowse?
Can you hear me? Yes, good afternoon.
We hear you. All right, so we've just recognized Ms. Daly, and somebody has a device on. If you've got YouTube or Facebook, please turn that off.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies, but good afternoon, Commission, as well as Mayor. As I stated in my write-up, Natasha Daly has been a pillar for the Central Services Department. I consider her my right hand, as well as all of those throughout Augusta. If you've had the opportunity to contact my office and speak with Natasha, you will too find that she is one that is very accommodating, as well as takes hold to our mission of providing red carpet service to each one of our citizens as well as employees. So it is with great honor that she is awarded and has been named the January Employee of the Month. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dowse, for your leadership and having great team members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Call your attention to the delegation portion of our agenda. Item B would be Mr. Michael Galucci regarding a resolution building an equitable Augusta, Georgia through healing, reconciliation, and unity.
Thank you. Mr. Gayuchi, good afternoon. Thank you for coming to present this afternoon. If you would state for the record your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes, sir, to present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. My name is Michael Galucci. My address is 2237 Cadden Road, Augusta, Georgia, 30906. Today, I'd like to address this resolution. We face in real time our past. We've felt the pressure across the nation and within our community as we struggle with the issue of race and those social, economic, and judicial influences of a time past, and its systemic and legacy environment that has impacted far too long our social tolerance while continuing to infiltrate our government, business, schools, and community. We can't avoid the ugly truth that race has been used to justify, shape, and execute the systematic underpinnings of the very systems affecting our daily lives. Virtually every indicator shows that people of color in the U.S. experience worse outcomes and more barriers to success than their white counterparts. It's no different here in Augusta. Intervening to reverse these trends requires intention and attention. Intentionality about understanding the historic and present day manifestations of racism, and the attention to effect ways to properly disrupt them. We know the issues discussed here within this chamber and in the corners that we choose to whisper in. We've heard the conversations, the need for better school and better educational approaches, revitalization of our neighborhoods, the need to improve small businesses, specifically minority businesses. Better housing, improvement of our justice system, addressing the school to prison pipeline, better de-escalation methods for police, and the question of equity in our community in every aspect. But we've watched them take a backseat to the manifestations of these issues. We appear more concerned with renaming streets and buildings and highways and talk of moving statutes, or the renaming of the commons to signal our embracement of racial equity. What's needed is to see and feel the urgency necessary to address the root causes of these manifestations. Now, some believe that we live in a post-racial America, a post-racial Augusta. That's hardly true. We've bought into the diversity pictures we see via the commercials, brochures, and websites. We create departments and label them with titles like inclusion and diversity and slap ourselves on the back, but then we sidestep the hard work to achieve the objective of those picture-pretty beliefs. Acknowledgement, reconciliation, healing, and unity are hard work. It takes commitment, again, attention and intention, and this resolution will go a long way to gaining a foothold in that process. Reconciliation creates respectful, constructive conversations with shared values at the center. It's the repairing of our social values and our social fabric, the transformation of relationships. Reconciliation, atonement, healing, all involves addressing wounds that have been long denied, ignored, or buried, and each one of those are a source of resentment. It restores trust in institutions and government. It provides a social space, permits and encourages individuals and governments to acknowledge the past, mourn losses, validate pain experienced, confront wrongs, and reach out to take the next steps to restore broken and strained relationships. This resolution places Augusta alongside other cities across this nation of recognizing that the task begins with respecting and seeing the dignity of all its citizens and being candid about the deeply division that we experience. It's a call to service that cries for your proactive engagement. This commission must act boldly, and yet it cannot succeed alone. I believe that the creation of a standing commission or council can provide needed input from our richly diverse community to guide your hand. Such a commission will open doors to the development of trust, the conversations of challenges, and the promise of solutions. Mr. Mayor, Commission, this is your moment. This is our moment to make a real structural change. Pass this resolution. Etch your name in our history and set the community you love and serve on the road to a stronger, equitable, and just Augusta. Thank you for your courage to reshape Augusta, and I can take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Gayucci. Chair recognizes the commission from the floor.
Move that we receive this as information.
Second.
All right, anyone with questions for Mr. Gayucci?
Salute you.
All right, thank you again for your presentation. There are no questions. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Mr. Mayor, for order of procedure, Mr. Day is here regarding zoning item number 24 and 25. I didn't know if you wanted to defer to the planning items and allow Mr. Day to address those, or I don't know, the attorney can.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll do that at that time.
Okay, so we'll go to item number D under our delegation portion. Ms. Sharonda Williams regarding COVID-19 emergency response hotline 24-hour number and website to distribution to community through mail-in monthly utility bills.
Hello.
Williams,
You're there,
again,
Ms. Williams.
Thank you so much. Ms. Williams, if you'll state for the record your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to present.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Because I do have a
Very
new
well.
map. Thank
Yes,
you.
we can hear you.
My name is Sharonda Williams. I live at 1031 13th Street, Augusta, Georgia, 30901. I'm under the purview of Commissioners Jordan and Scott. And thank you, Honorable Davis, for allowing me the opportunity to speak to both you and the commissioners today regarding this request. And to be honest with you, I have gone to several institutions about this request and don't know if you're the right people to speak with regarding this, but I hope it falls and is on the right person's agenda so you can hear my request. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I'm going to keep it very brief because time is of the essence and we have less than 5 minutes, and I want to leave room for questions. But I come to you with a master's from the University of South Carolina, Arnold School of Public Health. So I'm coming to you from a population health as well as a community health standpoint. I have worked at a community health center for over 6 years and have knowledge about different healthcare disparities. So I'm coming to you with a personal story. My mother has a disability as well as comorbidities. And I found myself one Saturday spending over 5 hours looking for COVID updated information. And I have a master's degree. Now, if my mother had to look for this information herself, I don't think she would have been able to come up with her COVID-19 vaccination plan. And I share this out of concern with the commissioners because one, there is a vaccination hesitancy that we're seeing in our community that is causing people to not get the vaccination for 2 reasons. And I'll share this with you, and I think we can agree that we're fighting 2 pandemics. Not only are we fighting the COVID-19 virus, but we're also fighting the virus of misspreading of information and false information. So at this time, I'm coming to either the commissioners or someone regarding coming up with a, if you will, easier way to spread a positive message about COVID vaccination so others will have an opportunity to create a COVID action plan. Now, I'm leaving it at that. If there are any questions at this point, I think I sent a PowerPoint on what I am requesting or an example to see if this is of consideration of the commissioners. Yes, is that Commissioner Clark?
All right, I'll come back to you. All right, Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you and good afternoon for being here to address this. I was one of the people that was skeptical about the vaccine, but I had the privilege, along with the other commissioners, to attend the pastors' session out at the church to educate people on the vaccine. And I took that opportunity at that time, since I was eligible due to age, and I took the first round of vaccine and showed absolutely no ill side effects of it whatsoever. I went back yesterday afternoon and I took my second shot. 24 hours later, I'm still showing no ill side effects from it whatsoever. Of course, some people want to, how can they tell with me? But it's not a unsafe vaccine, I don't think.
Well,
it's not an unsafe vaccine. If I thought that it was unsafe, I would not have taken it myself. And I think I wanted to set an example, not only that it's a positive thing to do, because us as commissioners can't try to instruct people or lead people to do something that we ourselves are unwilling to do. And I would just like to say on my own behalf that I think the vaccines are appropriate. I think they're safe. And I would recommend everybody that is eligible to take one to get one. And I will help you get that word out.
Well, yes, sir. And I'm coming from a community outreach perspective, and I appreciate you being that positive example so others will see that it's not a negative thing. But there's still a hesitancy in the community. And also there's a group of people that are called hard to reach that are not receiving the information. So I'm trying to, if you will, pull on an experience from community outreach with the census, where we had to reach those hard to reach people in the rural areas through mailing and through simple messaging. And that's what I'm coming to, I guess, this group asking for. I need something simple to say, okay, go to csravax.org or dial, and I'll put a number. I'm just going to call out 711 for a 24-hour COVID response. But I also was asking and requesting if something could be mailed in the utilities bill. Now, back in April of 2020, last year, it seems like forever, you all sent out something, a simple message about the census that I was hoping with that simple message, it would get to everyone in the, I guess, under the catchment of the 30901. And I'm asking this because we know from research that healthcare is not just an individual thing, it's also community. People's health outcomes are based on their zip codes. So if a couple of people aren't receiving this information, sir, even though you're vaccinated, you're still at a risk for being exposed to COVID. So I'm sharing this to say, I hope we can find the most simplest message in order to reach as many people as possible to make their own vaccination plan if they choose to do so.
Ms. Williams, thank you, one, for sharing that information. Let me chime in with a few things. We have been having a series of community conversations, COVID conversations, where we brought individuals to the forefront. We started with doctors from Meharry Medical College, and we also had local doctors, Dr. Stacy Davis, Dr. Ronald Brown. We went from there to having some mental health professionals and our second cohort of the conversations. And we concluded that, or at least in our third cohort, with Dr. Jerome Adams, former U.S. Surgeon General. Yes. On the city's website, on the City of Augusta's website, augustaga.gov, there is a COVID-19 alert button that provides information where individuals in our city can access information. But I also think it's prudent for us to point out to individuals that they can go to dph.georgia.gov and find out real-time and specific information, not only about where vaccination sites are across the entirety of Richmond County, but in the CSRA, sans South Carolina. That information is readily available along with access numbers associated with that. But the simple request that you have is having an insert in the utility bill, and that's something that's currently being worked on right now.
Now, sir, thank you for that. I have watched most of your conversations, and I appreciate you for having that information. However, I'm looking for a more simplified way to say, hey, this is information for Augusta, for the CSRA, and not just the DPH, because there are several institutions that have their own COVID vaccination plan, but it's not all coordinated and pulled together. So that's what I was asking for at this time. Now, and then,
so that's two things. You've asked for a coordinated, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm coming back to you to close the conversation. You're asking for a coordinated vaccination plan. Do understand that the state of Georgia is leading the effort as it relates to vaccination and the distribution of those vaccines to our partner agencies, whether that's Walmart, whether that's Kroger, or any of the other associated pharmacies, but also our hospitals and our entire healthcare continuum. That vaccination plan is being handled at that level. The city of Augusta has been engaged. Most recently, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, our administrator, working in concert with our staff and other stakeholders, released the Augusta Forward plan as it relates to COVID-19 and our internal response, as well as some linkages to those external response efforts as well. So I would submit to you that the city has taken a step forward in those areas and will continue to make inroads in terms of how we communicate with individuals. At this point, I'm going to refer to the Mayor Pro Tem to give closing comments. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I think we make one mistake, and that is that we assume that everybody is technology savvy. You know, I'm 56 and I'm retired, and I only use the computer basically to pay bills and look at emails. So I was talking to Francine Scott, Commissioner Scott, a week or two ago. And one of the things we thought about, and I did have a conversation with Cedric Johnson. He said that AU may be able to help. Is that I think we need to put people at the entrances of stores and common places where people frequent, and give them a computer and let them go ahead and sign people up. Maybe we need to put a sign behind them that says something like vaccination something, and kind of work on a plan where we can get people out in the neighborhoods and or stores and common places where we can sign people up themselves. Because I think we're missing the point sometimes when we assume that everybody's technology driven, as well as putting things in the bills will be fine too. But I don't even look at my bill because I do everything electronically. So I do think we need to put some people in the neighborhoods, or should I say stores and common places. And Cedric Johnson did say they may be able to help some over at AU. Thank you.
Well, yes, and thank you, sir. And I'm also in connection with Dr. Weiss, Joshua Weiss at University. So I hope to connect with him after today, because it was something a little more specific that I was hoping for. And I don't think that it will be addressed here. But thank you all for your time, and thank you for answering my questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Our last delegation, item number E, Ms. Ronick West, regarding equality and economic prosperity for the underserved community.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ms. West, you presented before. Again, name, address, and if you have 5 minutes.
Hi, I'm Ronick West. My address is 826 Lake Terrace Drive, Augusta, Georgia, 30904. Is my presentation ready? Okay.
Did you submit it beforehand, Ms.
Yes.
West?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. State of emergency for Black America. I'm Ronick West, the president of the Greater Augusta Black Chamber of Commerce, Health, Equity, and Prosperity. Next slide, please. As an organization, we run approximately 100 activities throughout the Augusta, Richmond County, and CSRA area. Next slide, please. I want to quickly cover COVID-19 impact data. The pandemic is adding to systematic substantial gaps within our communities that is growing greatly daily. So our efforts must be innovative, impactful, and intentional. 41% of Black-owned businesses are projected to close. PPP funding was denied to most of Black-owned businesses. We held an event on February 8th, which featured local business owners and commissioners. We truly appreciate everybody that participated. That the event is still getting reviews, and we look to hold similar events in the future. Also, during the 2008 recession, the inequality gaps widened between Black and white America. Even Secretary of State Yellen, on a call with the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce and other commerces around the United States, stated this. Next slide, please. As a chamber, we began advocating for CARES Act funding to be utilized in an innovative way to impact business owners in Augusta, Richmond County, and came before the commission on September 2nd, 2020. Per the request of the commissioners and mayor, we began to meet with the interim city manager and additional departments from September 20th through November 14th and provided all program details and documentation. We were notified that a meeting would be held and additional details and a committee will be established. We have not heard any results from these meetings and do understand the CARES Act funding has been exasperated, but we're looking to ensure the program we presented will be fully funded by a Greater Augusta community. We are watching closely the $1.9 trillion relief plan from President Joe Biden that has set aside for equitable distribution grant, local jurisdiction funding, and Black business support. This should be approved sometime in March. Also, there's an executive order that was signed on January 20th, 2021, advancing racial equality and support for underserved communities through the federal government, which goes right along with GABC theme of equity and prosperity for the underserved and Black community. I want to reiterate that this program is to serve the community with guaranteed loans and grants and provide technical assistance to the community. Our effort that we started back in September was presented to help the local area immediately and provide needed support and to help prevent possible business closures. We as organizations were alerted by concerned small business owners and other citizens in the community, and through our efforts of our town halls and other efforts, that a similar program was rolled out that we were unaware of. Normally, we are notified by the city of community efforts to share out with our base, as well as provide additional support. Now, I come before you today, once again, seeking approval for our program, which will comply with the federal funding and equity standards as proposed by the White House to ensure Black businesses and underserved communities do not get left out of needed funding. During our town hall, one of the things we stress is innovation and the need for us to be creative or have expanding services to business owners and community at large. Cities such as Athens, Albany, Atlanta have allowed for different groups and organizations who understand and can add services to the community to participate and distribute needed funds to resources. I recently followed up the new city administrator, Mr. Donald, and he had the opportunity to review our documentation provided. I appreciate his follow-up and look forward to establishing a relationship. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We as an organization have worked diligently to serve our members and the community at large. Since our inception, we have identified through our efforts and while working with the Southeast Chamber Coalition, programming that is in other areas, but currently does not assist in Augusta, Georgia, the second largest city in Georgia. We stress the importance of having multiple programming running throughout the community on a continual basis through multiple organizations. We also advocate for support for newer, actively engaged organizations to receive support in their efforts. This impact can and help assist with a healthy, growing community and attract more growth. Before you see a list of additional programs and initiatives we look forward to bringing to the area, but today I come to you to petition for the 500K program that includes education, technical assistance, weekly reporting, and follow-up of outcomes. We hope the efforts that we put forth are proven ability to be innovative, be impactful, and bring new ideas to the Augusta and CSRA area are not taken for granted. Our team and partners are ready to run innovative programming for the community that will have a lasting impact. We look forward to establishing relationships to roll out the above initiative more to the Augusta and CSRA community. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Ms. West, for your presentation. Do we have any questions from members of the commission? All right, Commissioner from the 6th. If you would unmute yourself, sir. Commissioner from the 6th, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Ms. West, for the presentation. I'd just like my colleagues to we give the administrator, I encourage the administrator to get with Ms. West again with the second time if this legislation that she mentioned in March be passed. And as we realize, I think at this particular time, local governments will receive, I don't know whether it's gonna be called CARES money or money to enhance local jurisdiction. If there's any way, form, or fashion that the administrator looks at that at the time that legislation is passed and bring us back a recommendation once he sits down with her again. Based on what she presented, she's anticipating. We hope that she's right from the way everything is seems to be moving in Washington. That will be the time the appropriate legislation will be passed. So at that particular time, the administrator brings back a recommendation after meeting with her when all that happens. With Ms. West, I'm sorry.
Commissioner, Commissioner from the 6th, I think I concur with you. I think Ms. West's point is that she wants to keep this top of mind for everybody. Yes. Again, this is a seasoned conversation that the commissioner from the 2nd brought to us with her and her team's support. And we see things moving in DC, as you well indicated. I'm going to recognize the administrator.
Yes, sir, Mayor. I think Ms. West highlighted, I had an opportunity to meet with her as well as a former colleague out of Atlanta to discuss their plan. I think it's definitely has some quality merits to it. And we are tracking. I'll send the commission. I'm hoping to have it updated by tomorrow, but we're on track if the plan goes through as presented to receive about $40 million through the Biden program and their allocations. I would say while we should very closely look at putting money out through community organizations as well as through Augusta, we want to make sure that it's a competitive process, so we can't just wholly commit to giving one group, funding, but making sure that everyone knows when the money is going to roll out and give a fair opportunity. I think Ms. West and her group seem to be primed and prepared and should definitely have an opportunity to compete. And I'll continue to be in contact with her so that we can continue those conversations and let the rubber meet the road. So thank you for that opportunity. And I think we'll be well ready to support all Augusta and our supporting vendors.
Thank you, Administrator Donald. Again, Ms. West, thank you for the presentation. I think what we've heard is that as we track towards the passage of the $1.9 trillion stimulus bill, hopefully what we've heard consistent with what the administrator just indicated, Augusta stands in line to receive about $40 million. The target date that the Biden administration has expressed is having this on the president's desk by the middle of March. So hopefully we'll see this working and moving forward. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Call your attention to our consent agenda. And Mr. Mayor, regarding the planning items, if we could ask Director Sherman if there were any objectors to our planning petitions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to be a part of the record. Our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 23.
And again, 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Yes, I need to hear from Mr. Sherman if there were any objectors so we can enter that into the record.
Right, understood.
Yeah.
We're bringing them in now.
Okay, thank you.
Four and 5.
Yes, I need to hear from Mr. Sherman if there were any objectors so we can enter that into the record.
So anyone with YouTube or Facebook on, if you would please turn the volume down completely on those items so that we don't have the feedback. Director Sherman, Madam Clerk's asking for consent on items 1, 3, 4, and 5 to ensure that there were no objectors.
That's correct. There were no objectors on those cases.
Thank you.
Our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 23 with no objectors to our planning petitions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
All right, fantastic. All right, so Madam Clerk, I'm going to offer item 31, 32, and 35 for the consent agenda. All right, and I'll recognize anyone else for
Okay. Say that again, sir.
31, 32, and 35.
32 was removed.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Commissioner from the 8th. All right, Commissioner from the 4th.
I would like to add 33. 34. Unless the administrator got a lot of explaining, we can request to add 35.
We did already.
I'll stop right there.
Anyone else?
Mr. Sayers,
Yes, ma'am.
on the item for 33, could we identify the seat in which that person would take?
Just 1 second.
Scott?
Yes, ma'am. Cameron Nixon.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Hassan and Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Okay. Mr.
Voting.
Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Franum,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Hassan,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams. Mr. Mayor, just for the
Yes,
record,
ma'am.
just for the record, on item 32, that was the nomination of Ms. Chantelly Lilly to an expired term held currently by Mr. Cameron Nixon on the Downtown Development Authority. There were no other nominations. Thank you. That motion carries. Mr. Bobby Williams, unanimously.
Thank you,
Yes,
Madam
ma'am.
Clerk. All right, everybody. Again, for the record, that was Madam Clerk clarifying item number 33. Item 32 is a commissioner from the 8th indicated was deleted from the addendum agenda. Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, I want to do this. Let's go to item number 2 from the addendum agenda. And that should take us to having completed that. We go to item number 2.
Item number 2 from our addendum agenda, receive homeless task force update requested by Commissioner Jordan Johnson.
I recognize Commissioner from first.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, and everyone on the call. Thank you for, number one, giving the opportunity to give this update on our homeless task force that was appointed by the commission. Commissioner Williams and I, Dennis Williams and I have been meeting to discuss how this task force should look, what the goals of the task force should be, and how to effectively bring back recommendations on how to serve our homeless population. And so in the spirit of update, as we said we would do, we have identified organizations that serve the homeless to be a part of this task force. They will meet with us monthly to come up with some type of strategic planning and some type of goals that we can all get around to make sure that homelessness is eradicated in the city of Augusta. We will meet initially March 1st and then come up with a meeting schedule from then with all the members of the task force present. With that, we have been really focused on making sure that the city opens warming centers to make sure that folks aren't left out in the cold during bitter cold nights as we have this week, as we have coming up next week with certain winter storms that's coming through the city of Augusta. So I want to give you a little bit of feedback on what we've been working on so far as warming centers being open based off of staff recommendations. We've met with EMA, with our HCD director, our administrator's office, Parks and Rec, to come up with ideas to open May Park as a warming center for our homeless Augustans throughout the duration of this month. It will be staffed by the Parks and Recreation Department. The Sheriff's Office will provide and pay for their security to be able to come in to do shelter clearance and just to pay for security to make sure that nothing goes wrong while we're there. The idea is to open the facility from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. and then close for the day for cleaning. We need to make sure that we understand that this is not a 24-hour residential arrangement, but it is a nightly warming center. Showers will not be available. And of course, COVID protocols will be observed, i.e. mask, social distancing, temperature checks, so forth and so on. So the plan forward is that we will meet with our working team to solidify these plans so that we can then make sure that this warming center becomes open so that we don't have another situation in our city to where someone is freezing to death on the streets. And again, I want to publicly thank everyone that's been a part of the conversation, everyone that's been a part of this working session to make sure that these types of conversations are held and that direct action is taken. So thank everyone that I mentioned, especially Commissioner Williams, and again, those that I mentioned again. But again, in the spirit of update, that's what I wanted to share with the commission. And we agree that we will be updating you regularly on what happens with this task force and it happens. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the recognition.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the third.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Johnson, I just wanted to ask you this. If people want to drop off, since we're talking about cold winter months, kind of, days coming up, where can we drop off heavy coats? Do we take it to May Park or where can we go?
Well, going back to the portion about us coming back to the table this week to solidify final opening plans, within that solidifying, we will make sure that that information gets publicized as to where folks can drop off donations. We want to make sure that folks understand that, again, this is not a 24-hour arrangement. This is something simply for folks to be able to come in at night, to be able to be safe from the cold, and out by morning. But like I said, once we finish solidifying the plans, we will make sure that this information gets put out to the community at large so that we can serve our homeless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner, anyone else? Commissioner from the second.
No, I have nothing. He did
well. All right, very well. All right, to the Commissioner from the first, thank you for that update, and look forward to the good work that will be done by the task force. All right, Madam Clerk, I think that takes care of the addendum agenda.
Yes,
let's go back to item D, and we'll take that in companion with 24, 25, I believe.
Item D, it's Mr. Donald Day regarding the rezoning of 4717 Rollins Road.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I am not Mr. Douglas Day. I'm Charles Rollins. I've been hired to represent him before the commission. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. If you would allow me to have just a few seconds to speak. This is about the rezoning of 4717 Rollins Road, and I'm here representing Mr. Day particularly, but also generally the residents of the area. I have submitted into evidence with the commission a stack of police reports and 911 calls from the former location where this home is currently located on Brown Road. And I want to make clear that the neighbors' concerns with this home are not because they don't feel that there are children in this community that are in need, that these homes shouldn't exist anywhere. The issue is this particular home and the way that it appears to have been run there's a lot of runaway calls, reports about children, in the road, lots of incidents. And this particular piece of property is a decent sized lot on its own, but it's up against a large tract of timberland that is actually a hunting club. It's next to, there are a large number of neighbors, and there are some here that I know, which I'm going to let them speak to you on their own behalf. That fear that this home will not be run well, like I said, based on what we've seen from public records we've been able to gather so far. And so based on that, like I said, they're very concerned with the city granting this zoning application and would ask that it be denied. And I will answer questions if there are any for me. And I think the actual residents would like a chance to speak. I will point out that, I guess, sort of the last thing is that I think y'all should all have gotten a petition that I believe they found all but one resident in the neighborhood and got them to sign this. So it is a very strong support from the neighborhood opposing this petition. Are there any questions?
All right, Attorney Rollins, thank you for sharing that. I do believe we've got one question. Here's our posture. We'll take some questions, but I do want to get a chance to hear the planning petitions and hear an update from Director Sherman. And we certainly want to give opportunity if there's a spokesperson from the community who would like to speak on behalf of the residents. And if we then could get a census. Ms. Bond, I believe Natasha's downstairs with them. So if we can get a census of how many objectors we have to these two planning petitions as well. So we'll go in that order. Rollins, Attorney Rollins, if you'll pause for questions. I've got a question from the commission from the 2nd and the 8th in that order.
Yes, sir.
No, you skipped me, don't you?
Okay, I didn't see your hand, sir.
A little bit earlier, but I'll take third place.
Okay.
Okay. The attorney recommended denial of this petition, and I would like to have a reason why it should be denied.
The reason why I believe it should be denied is because of, as I said, the 911 calls that have been entered into evidence. Over 200, almost 250 911 calls to the old home, to the current location where this home is located, over a 6-year period. I understand that, anything like this is going to have some issues with the type of population that it serves, but that seems really high to me. I'm not sure why we need such a large group personal care home, I guess is my concern. And that's the residents' concern as well.
Mr. Mayor, one other question.
Continue, sir.
Regarding the fiscal year 2020 report from DHS and DFACS, the home out there received a quarterly score of A+. So if they were having that much difficulty in the home, why wouldn't DFACS, give them a lower score than A+?
I've seen these same reports, and honestly, I don't know how to square the two. The issues that appear to be there, and then these reports, I don't have an answer for that. It could be any number of things. I don't know, to be honest.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the councilor.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner from the 8th, then the 4th.
I believe the commissioner from the 4th was before me. I think you just skipped over him.
I'll wait.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. In regards to this petition, I listened in on the Planning Commission meeting as well, and was listening to Ms. Mackey and the planning commissioners as they went through some of the details on this. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, and Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask Director Sherman a question. Mr. Sherman, during the Planning Commission meeting, you recommended, or the staff recommended denial. Can you state why the staff recommended denial?
Yes. So just a little bit of a background on this. We have two cases before you. Number 20.
Rob, before you proceed, and I don't want to do this, but I think it's probably prudent to do this. Commissioner from the 4th, I'm going to ask you to yield as well. Why don't we hear the planning petition, because we're now debating the planning matter. What we did with the attorney is he spoke on behalf of Mr. Day, who would have presented just from a delegation standpoint. So now we're debating the matter. So let's just suspend for a minute, and we're going to come back in this order. I want to hear the planning petitions read into the record, and then we'll come back to the commissioner from the 8th and or 4th and Director Sherman. Okay, let's do that. Madam Clerk, if you'll read for the record the planning petition.
Can we companion 24 and 25?
That's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Item number 24 is a request for concurrence to the commission to approve with the conditions as listed, requesting a change of zoning from a zone A agriculture to a zone R3A multiple family residential, affecting property containing 1.84 acres known as 4717 Rollins Road. Item number 25 is a request for concurrence with the Augusta Planning Commission to approve with conditions as stated. A petition by Margaret Mackey on behalf of Edward Mackey requesting a special exception to establish a group home in a R3A zone for boys ages 6 through 18 years of age, 21 years if still in high school, per section 16(2)D of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance for Augusta, Georgia, affecting property known as 4717 Rollins Road.
Okay, Dr. Sherman, I'm sorry, Director Sherman. Rob, if you'll go back to what you were saying, and then I'm going to kick it to the commissioner from the 8th and 4th, okay?
Okay, I'll do that.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, state your inquiry. Commissioner from the 6th, state your inquiry.
I thought you was, and if I'm wrong, I'm going to apologize. Normally, I think you let the petitioner make their case, and then you come back and let the community one way or the other speak again. But I think the petitioner should be speaking about the merit of the program first. I believe that's how that's normally done, because right now what is happening, you're putting them so deep in a hole, that don't necessarily going to change anybody's mind one or the other. But now it's going to be tough for them to come out because everybody's coming in their way. And I'm assuming what people's going to say, so. But I think the petitioner should have the first chance to plead their case. That's not in no infraction on the attorney because he was on the on the delegation. But normally I think the petitioner gets a chance to appeal for the right to have the variance of the rezoning.
All right, so we're going to go back in this order. We want to hear from the petitioner. We want to hear, Natasha, I want to get a census, since you're there, of those that are in support and those that are in opposition to the petition. All right, so at this point, we'll hear from Ms. Mackey or Mr. Mackey on behalf of the petition, and then we'll get our census.
Good afternoon, my mayor and my commissioners. I am Miss Margaret Mackey. I am part owner with my husband, Mr. Mackey, of Taking a Step Beyond Group Home. We have been in business going on 8 years now. And as was said previous, we have maintained an A and B average on our grade. And it's not from the defects here locally, it's from the state of Georgia, Peachtree Street, the Office of Provider Management. I am going to address, first of all, the complaints or the misunderstanding as to what we do in our home and the level of voice that we accept. I also live in a community, and I would be feeling the same way as the opponents here against this if in my community, if I didn't have an understanding, and I think that's what's missing here. They're not understanding what we're trying to do. They're going against us because of a call log. I also would like to submit, and I have proof that we are still receiving and received mail this week for at our home 1509 that belongs in the trailer. The list of domestic violence calls on the list that they gave you, that is not our group home. Youth do not receive domestic violence calls. The runaway calls, those reports are ours. The car theft report that happened back in 2015, that was mine. Now, displaying the walkaways. These children have rights. They are children. They are your children. They are the community children. Most of my children deal with trauma. This is not a DJJ placement. I do not take kids with criminal records from DJJ. My kids are here due to the opiate crisis. Most of their parents are in drug and alcohol facilities, and these kids need a place to go. My kids do have some kind of trauma. Some of them have been sexually abused, mentally abused, physically abused. I do have a young man in my home right now. He is the son of the woman 3 years ago that drove her car into a lake with all of her children. I have her son in my home. These kids are going to school. The neighborhood is worried about their daughters. One young man told me he's worried about his daughter with my boys. The fact is, my kids have been attending school with their children for 8 years. They're zoned for Cross Creek, we're zoned for Cross Creek. So our kids have been interacting for 8 years. We go to Pine Hill and Cross Creek. Those are the schools in Augusta Tech where my kids go. These are everyday children in our school systems who need a place to go. So as I look over these records from the police report, yes, we will admit runaway hours. We have no carjacking. We have no disturbance and nuisance. Domestic violence will not be given to a child under the age 18. These are not family members. Thus coming from the trailer. We also have mail to prove that we are still getting moved. When the police come out, that whole property belongs to a Mr. Johnson. The trailers and the house up front, they put 1509. They just put 1509 and they go. Every once in a while, we'll get something for 1507, 1506, but we get a lot of 1509 mail that's not belonging to Taking a Step Beyond. We do not get domestic violence calls. So that's the only thing that they're worried about. They're worried about the type of kids that's going to be in the area. One gentleman told me this afternoon that the kids will have nothing to do. If you have those packages in front of you that I submitted, my kids have plenty to do. They're a member of the Augusta Boys Club. They are a member of Augusta Family YMCA. Every day after school, there's an activity by the state that we're mandated that they have activities. We're very seldom even in the home. Several commissions have came out and seen the facility and how we are set up. We do a wonderful job taking care of our kids. As far as the walking away and running away, the kids have rights. There's a law passed by President Obama before he left office. It's called the Prudent Parent Act. The Prudent Parent Act gives kids in care the opportunity to be afforded a normal life like any of your kids, and they're allowed to walk the street if they want to take a walk or want to come back. If they stay past 3 hours, then we have to call. So if they go to a friend's house and they're playing PlayStation, they get caught up and it's past that 3rd hour at 3:05, I have to call the police to report them as a runaway. We have had no children in our home to actually pack up and try to leave our facility. I heard a complaint earlier about one of the boys, one of the ladies in the neighborhood said her kid was in my facility and he did drugs and all this and that. He was not in my facility. He was in another facility that's around the corner from me that's called Fresh Start, owned by Mr. Crafton, that is no longer in business. It was not my facility. That's not the type of issues that we deal with in our facility. So the reason that we are trying to move to that facility is because it is off to itself. It is far back in the woods, and we have a lot. There's an activity center we're putting out there in the shed house that's there. That's going to be a state-of-the-art activity center. The kids have plenty of room to play and do the things that we do. We have wonderful young men, and I wish everybody would take the chance to just come out and meet them. We had one that just won Youth of the Year at the Hagler YMCA. They gave him a $2,500 check for college and a new Dell computer. We have kids that are graduation. If you see in your package, we have kids that go to proms. We do things out on the patio for the kids on the lots that we do. We rent floaties and balloons and we have parties. My kids are never bored. And as far as stealing off anybody's property, I saw he put all these records. I don't have any idea what these neighborhoods Mr. Day is speaking of, or these are not my kids and stealing from other people's property. We've never had an issue. I have a letter from one of my neighbors that moved into the property a year ago, and he put a letter, and may I read this letter? He said, to whom it may concern, I am the neighbor to Taking a Step Beyond Group Home. I was not even aware that this program existed, nor that the house next to me was actually a group home. I've seen children from time to time, but just thought that it was a family with children residing there. During my time as their neighbor, I have not had nor witnessed any problems or had any concerns. I've had not any problems with the youth placed there. As I stated, I wasn't even aware that this was a group home in foster care. And this is Mr. Anthony Wilkins. Also, to address the property value. When I look at the property value on reports that I have gotten, most of the property values in that neighborhood start at $57,000. And I think one of the highest is actually says from 57 to 101. The highest house property value on that property is the home that I have purchased. So I won't be affecting their property value. Mr. Wright bought the home next to us, and his property value is at $340,000, and it was still at $340,000 when he purchased the home where we are right now. We are not affecting anyone's property value, not at all. And it wouldn't be much effect for the property values on Rollins Road because most of those places, or most of those lots are running between $50,000 and $100,000. So we won't be affecting anyone's property value.
Okay, Ms. Mackey, thank you for that. All right, there's a lot of questions that we have. Thank you for that presentation. Let's do this. I want to hear from, again, a single objectioner or single objector to this petition. And then Natasha, if you could, again, share with us the sensitive information. Once we've done that, I'm going to come back to the commissioner from the 4th and then the 8th. Okay? Thank you, Ms. Mackey.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner.
Good evening.
My name is Oscar Reed. I live at 4736 Rollins Road, directly across where they putting this group home. I don't know if I can follow all that presentation she just gave, but I can say that when I first seen this planning commission that was coming out there, it struck me, it said a group personal care home. And I thought that was going to be for elderly people that comes in. I had no problem with the elderly people that was going to come out there as and being taken care of in this care home. But then as time progressed and my neighbors came to me, they was telling me it was a home for troubled boys from 6 to 18 or 6 to 21. And they presented me with some police reports and stuff. And we're a nice, quiet neighborhood. And it's mostly elderly people, veterans that have retired from out there. And it's been nice and quiet. And we're trying to keep it peaceful and nice and quiet. And it is rural. And that's the reason that we're all out there owning 2 acres and or more. Now, first she's saying that the house property values are at 50,000 or 60,000. I wouldn't care about how the value is. I live in $100,000 home because I'm on 3 acres. And what this is our space. And it's our privacy that we have. And it's our safety that we have out there in this area. And we got about 100 and some people that live on this road. And we all are peaceful, and we had some troublemakers that came out there that moved in or rented up the way, but we all got together and they moved out because we're keeping it that way, peaceful out there. Now, I know children have to have places to go. I have 9 grandkids. I've raised 3 boys of my own, sent them to college and all. Now, I had problem with them. The problem that I foresee coming is that a lot of kids, like she said, they have a lot of stuff to do out there. The kids get bored in a facility. And I see kids walk up and down the street at all time of nights or whatever, and that's what we stop from out there. Now, I have no problem with the break-ins, but my neighbor have had young people that came and broke in his home, but I own Rottweilers and about 600 pounds of dogs. So I don't have any problem with that. Now, as far as this, I know these kids have to have somewhere to go. This is a rural area, like I'm saying, and we trying to keep any type of violence. And from what I'm reading on these police reports, I know she said it's not her area, but I know Brown Road because I grew up out in that area, Gracewood, Brown Road. I know all these areas. And nobody can control and say where these kids go. You say these kids can go walking. Where these kids go walking, we at a dead end street. So walking out there, the only thing they're gonna be looking to do is to get into some trouble if they're having all these problems. And I know kids need help and whatever, and they need counseling. But I'm against this group home, first of all, because it looked like it was deceptive of what they was talking about. It's a care home, the group personal home. I'm thinking it's for elderly people, not for young people that's troubled, teenagers, whoever's been getting in trouble out there. And that's what it's going to amount to. We're just trying to keep our neighborhood safe. And we didn't buy this property for folks to put in group homes and homes to help these type of people, whatever not, unless it was, like I said, a caretaking home. Our elderly do need taken care of. Our young people also need taken care of in their proper place that they're being put, where they have these counselors and people that stay there. Like she stated, they don't live there. They're there half of the time and come in there, and they'll have somebody else counsel. When you don't live there in a home, you don't know what these kids, you just get reports of what these kids are doing. And like I had spoken to her for the first time today, and I said, y'all are welcome to move out that person. I said, but we don't want you bring all the group people out here and have these kids out here that's having trouble that you done had problems with in our neighborhood. And I'm sorry that it runs this way. I say, but it's other properties and other places out here without putting them in a place. And I know it's not a neighborhood because of a neighborhood with a lot of people, but we are spaced out. We are spaced out, but we're also a close neighborhood and we all get along and we protect our properties and we try to keep all the violence and criminal activities from out there because we're all rural area and it takes police some time to get up out there, so we protect ourselves. I've called in all of you guys and left you emails. Some have returned them and some have not. But I hope that you vote on this matter and vote for us of keeping our neighborhood safe. Because I lived all around Augusta and that's one reason that I've moved out there and a lot of other people moved out because it is rural and it's a safe area for us. And we're not looking for any type of trouble or any type of criminal activity to come our way. So I thank you for your time and I hope that you give this some serious thought and protect our community that is a paradise out there to keep criminals away from there with everything that goes on because it's close to a lot of criminal area roads out there in that area. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. All right, here's our posture. We're going to go to the commissioner, Ms. McFarley.
Yes, sir. We have.
Again, if you could just get a census for us of those in support of the petition and those opposed to it, and just let us know that here in just a second, okay?
Okay.
All right, a show of hands for those in support of the petition and those that are opposing it.
Supporters. We have 5 supporters.
Okay.
6 in opposition.
All right, very well. Thank you. All right, Commissioner from the 4th, Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, sir. I just want to speak on this behalf. Since my tenure in Augusta, I have been very active in our communities, and particularly active in our neighborhood issues. But first, I want to say to the client of the attorney here today, it's okay to object to something, but I really take issue with some of the issues that was raised via email to the mayor and other folks, identifying, saying that the African American Commission was already supporting this, and he don't know what the heck he was talking about, and I resent that. Secondly, we heard this thing about classifying these kids as all criminals. I take issue with that as well. It's okay to object to it, but don't pre-classify folks. I detest that. Now, I support communities and neighborhoods. And when we talk about what the situation we debated vigorously several times in Green Meadows, this is very much the same as Green Meadows. And we had some folks, in my view, who supported that with total disregard for the community that was there. I take issue with that. And I have a lot more to say, but I'm gonna make it a little bit short as this. And I know these kids need somewhere to go, but I just don't believe that in this neighborhood is a place for that particular facility to be there, because the community, the neighborhood does not want that facility there. And these kids may be in danger there if they are simply transversing up and down the road or ending up on somebody else's property. I wouldn't want to see one of these kids get mistaken as breaking in or doing something nefarious when they may or may not. So I just think it's a very volatile mix to even consider putting this particular facility there with that kind of opposition. And as I say it, I support neighborhoods. I don't support bigotry and I don't support racism, but I do support neighborhoods who want to determine their future. So with that, reference item 24, reference rezoning, I move that we deny the rezoning petition.
Second.
That Mr. Garrett?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and that was a motion and a second to oppose the petition?
To deny.
Okay.
Mr. Sias and Mr. Garrett.
Madam Clerk, I've got one more speaker for this matter in the audience that I do think it's certainly appropriate for us to hear from. I'm going to call to the microphone one of our juvenile court judges. If you'll proceed to the microphone, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and the commissioners that serve our community. I'm coming here in support of the petition for this particular group home. As you heard earlier from Ms. Mackey.
If you'll tell them who you are.
Yes, I am Amanda He, juvenile court judge for the Augusta Judicial Circuit, 735 James Brown Boulevard. I've been on the bench for approximately 5 years now, and we have approximately over 300 children in foster care just in Richmond County. And the issue is that we don't have enough foster homes for these children to live in, and a congregate care home, a personal care home, which is just a semantic for the state of Georgia, that's specific for children as a last resort. The children that we place into these homes literally have nowhere else to go. And as Ms. Mackey spoke earlier, the type of children that are in this home are not DJJ, Department of Juvenile Justice involved youth. These are defects youth. So therefore, under the law of the state of Georgia, they have been abused, neglected, sexually, mentally, physically, or have been in such deplorable living conditions that we, the judges, have to make a decision to remove them from those situations and put them in a more positive place. Also, as Ms. Mackey spoke earlier, most recently, one of the youth in her home was named Youth of the Year and received a $2,500 scholarship check from Barney's Pharmacy. These are the type of youth that are there in these homes. These are everyday children, everyday teenagers that like to watch TV, play video games, watch WWE. You know, these are what young boys come and tell me when they have to come to court about their cases. So I understand the objections. I think that I've not seen these police reports personally, but from what I've heard from the evidence presented today, there's been no valid evidence that these different calls that are of issue, these criminal activity calls that are related to this particular home. In addition, under the law of Georgia, if a child does stay away for X amount of hours, you have to call 911. That is a requirement under the state of Georgia. So, you know, from the different things that have been presented today, what the issues are, again, these are not Department of Juvenile Justice youth, and I don't think they should be characterized as such. These are our children. These are children that have been abused, neglected, and have been rejected. And we as a community have to step up and not continue to reject these youth. They're going to be adults one day. They're going to be a part of this community. So if we reject them now, we're setting them up for failure. So I highly, highly encourage this commission to please think about the bigger picture here. I have about 70 children that would qualify for this home that have to submit outside of this area because we don't have enough homes for our kids. So again, if they're in this type of placement setting, this is our last resort. We're trying to put them on the right foot. Again, on my caseload, the youth that just got named Youth of the Year, that was my child. He's been in foster care since 2018. And he's been in that home and he has thrived in that home. And I feel comfortable placing my children there because I know they'll get the needs that they need. And again, this is a state-rated facility that has an A+ rating. The state of Georgia doesn't play when it comes to children. So if this was a facility that was having all these issues, I assure you, the state of Georgia does not play and it will shut it down immediately. If there are any questions, I will take them.
All right, thank you so much, Judge Heath. All right, Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 10th.
Mr. Mayor, yes, ma'am. I really have, I'd like some information. I have heard from the proprietors of the home, and I've heard from you about the children that are having issues, and I've heard that the children are, battered. Some has got sexual abuse, there's trauma, there's mental abuse. I've heard everything except one thing. I haven't heard where there's a program for these children and these young adults, and I'll say young adults, when you're 18 to 21 in that situation, you're an adult. What counseling or care are they receiving?
Yes, Commissioner Clark. So they are youth in the care of the state of Georgia. So actually, Miss Mackey will be living there. There's someone there, adult supervision 24/7 for these kids. And actually all those services, like you said, therapy, we have behavior aids, different things that we order for the children. If those services do not come in-house, which Ms. Mackey will be able to speak more specifically to that, either those services are brought in-house or they will be serviced by our local provider in the community. So we do ensure, our court orders mandate trauma therapy, behavioral aids, tutoring for school, education assessments, whatever those children need, it is ordered by the court to happen. And so if DFACS contracts with a provider, they provide all those services either in-house or they will contract with someone in the community. But again, Ms. Mack can go into the specifics of that, of the day-to-day operations of that particular facility. But in general, we make sure and ensure that those kids are getting what they need so that they can be successful, like our most recent youth that was recognized as Youth of the Year.
Okay, I have one more question. What is the financial impact, or what would the home receive financial aid per one child? How much is it?
Mr. Mayor, is that appropriate? That has anything to do with this?
Commissioner, Commissioner Son, I appreciate that. You raising that concern.
I mean, because
again,
let me qualify if you don't mind, please.
No, hold on. You keep interjecting. I mean, you cut your colleague off, so let him finish. Restate your question, Commissioner, from the 10. Restate your question.
I was just inquiring how much financial aid the state puts forth to each one of these children for them to receive the necessary programs that they need.
All right, so I'm gonna rule on germaneness. The issue that's before us is a planning petition. And I'll ask you to think about another series of questions that you want to ask, but
no, I'm done.
Okay, all right, very well. All right, I've got a motion and a second to deny the petition. I'll offer the following. What we've heard from the petitioner and certainly those in the community that have levied a series of concerns as they see it. We live in a time where we've got individuals who are facing the greatest pandemic of our generation, not only globally, but locally as well. We've got individuals who are being met with the challenges of social and racial injustices. And now we find ourselves with young people who on the cusp of having access to a better life, having access to what it is to grow up in a familial setting of where they have the love, the care, and the nurture that is so vital to our upbringing, that is so vital to what it is to feel the love of a mother and a father. And in this case, we have young people, boys in particular, who find themselves faced with these challenges that they've watched reverberate across television airwaves for the past year. And now we as a commission have an opportunity to not exact additional trauma on them by denying this, but we have an opportunity to give them a hand up. And yet we're debating about the merits of it when these types of things are well within the purview of the commission to provide for the zoning so that we can take a group of young boys, ages 6 to 18, who have experienced some of the most significant traumas of their life. Let us not, as a commission, take that same opportunity and exact additional trauma on them because we deny this. But rather, let's look for ways in our community to create pathways for opportunity and for success. Clearly, they've been doing good work. It not only benefits the community for us to provide these boys with a place of shelter, a place where they can experience the love, nurture, care, and concern from clearly folks who are invested in this, but at some point, they're going to be adults as well. They're going to be adults who very well could find themselves sitting on this Zoom screen 10 years from now, 15 years from now. I would hope that our commission is not the commission that strips them of those opportunities. And so I'm going to go to the commissioner from the first who wanted to weigh in on this and speak to this. And I think the commissioner from the sixth, he may have wanted to speak, but the commissioner from the first, think globally about this. We have an opportunity to help people. When we say we're in the business of lifting up all in our community, when we talk about Augusta being a city of opportunity for everyone, that includes those 6 to 18 years of age as well. Commissioner from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I find it very unfortunate that we're faced with a situation that's causing us to be so torn, because the situation, in my opinion, this is not the opinion of this body, it's my opinion as an individual. So, you know, I feel like we're fear mongering, that we're getting ready to make a decision based off of fear mongering. And for me, personally, it feels like I'm talking about potentially my own kids. Now, we all know that I don't have any, but when I think about these young men, I think about my unborn sons. And I feel that when I think about them, because majority of the young men that are living in that facility, I had the pleasure of teaching them, of molding them and shaping them. I know their favorite colors. I know their favorite song. Judge Heath mentioned wrestling. Well, I know their favorite wrestler because I took them to the arena to watch the shows live when we could go out in public. These kids are not what we've classified them as today. And to keep from sounding like a broken record, I watched over the weekend email after email come in, classifying these young men as convicts and criminals and rapists. How can we move a conversation from whether or not a facility is doing well enough to moving it into this position of something that's not the case? Shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or what ifs. I think that is a shame. I think that we need to be a little bit more compassionate about having the opportunity to help young men who otherwise have nowhere else to go, who otherwise will have no one else to stand on because of the situations that they've fallen into by no circumstance of their own. Again, I know these young men. I hired these young men. I taught these young men. I talked to these young men. They are not what folks are calling, not troubled youth. That's not what this is. And so again, to keep from sounding like a broken record, I want to just make sure that I clear my heart, because again, it feels like I'm talking about my own son. And unfortunately, I'm torn about putting them out into a facility where their safety may be at jeopardy. And I should not have to face that. I shouldn't have to feel that emotion. I should not have to wonder whether or not giving this opportunity will put us in a position to where we say, well, we should not have. And to everyone in the chambers, regardless of what side you're on, have a heart and understand that this is a life-changing facility. And I'm not talking about what somebody has told me. I'm talking about what I've seen with my own two eyes. It's a life-changing facility. These boys are different because of this facility. These boys are different because of the programs that this facility offers. And if we deny this today, it shows that we don't have an understanding of what's happening here. So again, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the recognition. In closing, have a heart when making this decision.
To recognize Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor, for coming back to me. Ms. Mackey, I understand the concerns and all the different information that we have received. Ma'am, I live very close to your current home on Brown Road. I live in the neighborhood directly across the road. I too have received letters from the neighbors. I've spoken with some of the neighbors, and they've told me that they have broken up fights with some of the boys. They have had people on their property, on the power line that separates you, as well as other issues. But they have not called the police about it. They've just kind of taken care of it themselves, broken up the fights. So, I'm not against you staying on Brown Road where you currently are, but the residents of Rollins Road clearly have stated that they are in opposition to this, and I support their feelings about their neighborhood. So as the commission moves forward with this. It's not about whether or not I have heart, Commissioner. I've worked in Harrisburg with the boys. You and I have talked about that, about, the ministry that we do down there. I understand that there are many, many kids in our community that do need help. They need places to go. And I'm hoping that as we have this conversation, that it will help our planning staff to help come up with better ways to kind of direct these types of homes to find suitable locations for them. And also I'm hoping that our community hears them and, that it'll foster more foster homes. That is something that is drastically needed in our area. So with that, I'm just going to say, thank you for what you're trying to do with our community, but the residents of Rollins Road, I don't think I don't think it's a good fit.
Chair, now it's Commissioner from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to submit to Commissioner Garrett and anyone else who may have, wondered if I questioned their judgment. I don't question your judgment as far as you having a heart or your compassion. I used to live off of Brown Road, and for years we didn't even know that this home was there. So I'll just submit again that I personally do not think that this is an issue that folks are making it out to be. I think that it's a great facility. I think it's a great program. And, I'd like to make a substitute motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I've got a substitute motion to approve with a second from the Commissioner from the 6th. All right, Madam Clerk, we're going to go and vote in that order.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be polite. I'm gonna pass. But
okay, no, I'll come back.
You saw my hand. I ain't gonna say a doggone thing. But the next time,
right, Commissioner from the 4th.
No, I'm not saying anything.
Okay, that's fine.
Run your vote.
Madam Clerk, you voted. You're muted. Voting. You muted.
Okay, I got it. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. The motion is to approve, substitute motion is to approve zoning petitions Z2108 and Z2109 by Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Son. Mr. Clark.
No.
Sir? Mr. Mayor, were you?
Madam Clerk, we have to take item number 24 by itself first.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Clark.
No.
Mr. Franham.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Son.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight.
No, ma'am.
Ms. Scott.
Abstain.
Mr. Sias.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
That motion carries. No, I'm sorry. That motion fails. I'm sorry. That motion fails 3-6-1 with Mr. Clark, Mr. Franham, Mr. Garrett, Ms. McKnight, Mr. Sias, and Mr. Bobby Williams voting no, Ms. Scott abstaining.
Thank you for your time.
Item
Main
number
motion, Madam Clerk.
25.
Madam Clerk, we're back to the main motion, which is to deny item number 24.
Oh, okay. To approve. All right, Mr. Clark.
What is this motion?
This is a motion to deny number 24.
Item number 24 to deny Mr. Sias and Mr. Garrett's motion.
Yes.
Mr. Franham.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Son.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson,
No, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott,
Abstain.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams.
No, ma'am.
This motion carries 6-3-1 with Mr. Hassan, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Dennis Williams voting no, and Ms. Scott abstaining.
All right, so this gives us, we can now proceed with item number 25 at the adoption of number 24. All right, hold on, everybody suspend. All right, Commissioner from the 8th State Inquiry.
I was going to make a motion for number 25.
All right, hold on just a second. Chair recognizes Attorney Brown.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, because of the vote on number 24, it is not possible to grant a special exception because the zoning does not exist and the current zoning does not allow a special exception. So number 25 must be denied. You have to have the zoning in order to have the special exception.
That's correct. All right, so again, for the record, we can take, all right, Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 6th State Inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask Mr. Sherman, or either the attorney, the one can answer this question. Based on that action, let's deal with just 25. I'd like to vote on it. And I think you said summarily, or actually, 25 is denied by default because 24 failed because you can't set up shop on a space that you're not allowed. So my question is, does this 25, is there a distinction between 25 and 24 in terms of coming back and coming again? In other words, what I mean, 24 has been denied. So I think you can come back in a year and try to get this, if not mistaken. And does 25, if that's the case, does 25 have to violate the same rules as well? I would assume so, because you can't do one without it. So can you come back in a year's time to proceed?
Yes, on number 24, you can. And what I was going to say, they're companion items. You have to have 24 approved to have the base zoning of R3 multifamily. Multifamily zoning allows you by special exception to have a group care home, which was agenda item 25. So you wait a year on 24 and you get the applicant or someone else could petition for this. 25 is just in neutral ground. There's no action to be taken on it because as Attorney Brown said, you've got to have the base zoning in place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, sir. This is a more of a statement. We see this situation all the time where folks go out and purchase property and then have to start going through the rezoning process and everything like this. And the question is, as many times that this has happened, we need to further educate our community and folks not to do that. And my question is for Mr. Sherman, does any of these folks come to the planning and development office prior to making these purchases that require these special exceptions, rezoning, and sit down and talk with the city department before they make these purchases?
Generally, they do. But in this case, I would think that they did not, because the staff would advise them that if they make a contract on the property, it'd be contingent on them being able to use the property the way they intend to for the purchase. So it does occur, as in this case, where someone can maybe get ahead of themselves without inquiring with our office.
And I totally agree. We need to have as much effort as we can to avoid this, because on many occasions we've seen requests for a zoning change by the owner of the property for the prospective buyer, and not all have been successful. And we avoided this kind of issue by doing that. So when they come to you all, we hopefully they're getting the advice that they may want to reconsider that or meet with folks in the neighborhood. And I know out on Tobacco Road, the owner of a property did just that before trying to get it rezoned and talking with the community. So we really need to encourage these folks to do this. And as my colleague said, put us in the position of, oh, it seems like we don't have a heart. And that's not true. We also have a responsibility, everybody in this community. Thank you.
All right. Again, Madam Clerk, items 24 and 25 have effectively been addressed at this point.
Okay, we're at item 26.
Yes, item 26.
Item 26 is discuss a plan to allow outside events on city property if they meet the CDC guideline plan they have established for outside events. Commissioner Franham.
All right, Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 7th, and then we'll hear from the administrator, who I believe has sent a memo out regarding this matter. Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm bringing this agenda item to the body because I'd spoken with the Augusta Market individual who runs the market, and she, basically wanted to see where we stand as a community in having outdoor events. Also being the liaison for the Arts and the Heart, the Arts Council as well, and what they were looking to do in September with Arts and the Heart. My concern is that, there are CDC guidelines to allow outside events. If you go Decatur, Georgia, their farmers market starting in March, East Atlanta Village, their market starting in March. And frankly, we're going to lose our market if we don't have a kind of a proactive stance in trying to get our market started. The market would like to start on the 19th of March. And the owner of the market has, sent in to Mr. Donald, Administrator Donald, kind of a plan of like how to have a safe event outside, whether that's hand washing stations, mask required, tables socially distanced apart, things that just kind of make sense. And frankly, I was told that, we're down like 1 million visits in downtown Augusta over the last year because of COVID. And we need to start to look at ways to bring some businesses back downtown, allow people to come and go to the market, as well as, shop downtown, eat downtown while they're downtown as well. And frankly, we had during, in the December, November, January, there was events that happened on city property outdoors. And I'm not really, I'm kind of concerned the fact that, though I think the committee is made up of everybody that needs to be at the table, the fact that we want to come back in April, in my mind, is a little late when, we've been closed for business. We've got employees that are working at facilities that can come up with plans, implement the plans. And especially I'm going to speak to the market, because if we don't open this market in March, I mean, they're going to go to our neighboring county and they're probably not going to come back, which is very concerning that we weren't, in a sense, open for business or willing to have that conversation as a commission to kind of help. So I'll leave it at that, Mayor. I just want to start the conversation. I appreciate what the administrator did to put that committee together. But for me, like, to have to come back in April, which is almost 2 months away, maybe we could take it on a case-by-case basis on the market piece they can handle next week and bring it back in 2 weeks. And then we can start the market in late March, like these other cities are doing in the Atlanta, Decatur area. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you, sir. I want to support what the commission from the 7th has brought forth, but I also believe that this item and several other items on here should go through the committee process where we have the full length of time to discuss them, and we send this back through the committee and get the information and get it immediately and review what the administrator has put together. I'll be ready to support it, but I'm gonna move that we send this back to committee, Public Services Committee, and be ready to work with it.
Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to what the commissioner from the 7th is bringing to us, I fully support this as well. And my only concern about sending it back through the committee cycle, which I don't disagree with, is that if we don't have a decision in place by March, I would really hate to lose this market and, the access to fresh food, as well as an avenue for people to have revenue each Saturday, which it provides. And I would really hate for it to go to one of our neighboring counties. So I would challenge the administrator to help us through this and help us come up with a way to come to a decision today, as well as work towards better understanding of how we can use county property, especially when it's outdoors, in light of this pandemic.
Back of the next week.
Minister Dunn.
Absolutely. So Mayor, thanks for the opportunity to respond to that. I would like to humbly remind the commission that the authority to make any decision rests with our 11 elected officials, and by a vote of the affirmative of the majority, you can move in whichever way that you deem appropriate. As administrator, I simply bring recommendations for which you can consider to move forward. For individual one-off activities, I think it is well within the commission's not only right, but aligning with your vision to look at these and make decisions. But I do think that it's appropriate for us to broadly have a strong plan on how we're going to allow people to operate and increase their business. I think Commissioner Frantum brings a very important aspect, which is how we allow people to operate on city property. But I think also in using examples from Decatur that he mentioned, also you can look at the District of Columbia and the City of Atlanta, where they actually allow sidewalk openings for restaurants for them to be able to provide eating and things of that nature, which we don't currently do in Augusta. So the working group that we put together is literally to help come up with the framework to be able to do that. But in lieu of losing business, I think you can actually, if there's a will of the commission to do so, you could actually vote on it today. If not, taking it back through committee and then evaluating and bringing those individual activities to a vote is also something that, that ability rests with the commission. And so I will always defer to the will of the commission, and we will abide by it in that way. So I think, again, Mayor, there's twofold. One, if there's the will of the commission to vote on these things individually and give access, then that's well within your right and abilities. And then two, my recommendation is simply to bring a codified plan back that you can abide by moving forward.
Mr. from the third.
I make a motion that we go ahead and vote on this today and move forward so that we can get this going if it happens in March.
I second.
All right, voting.
Can someone restate the motion? Like what's the exact motion we're voting on?
All right, okay, we'll do that. Everybody suspended for a minute. We're gonna restate, Commissioner from the third, if you'll restate your motion. And then I got a couple of fingers wagging, hands slapping.
Just make sure you see them.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was saying I would like to go ahead and make a motion today and go ahead and vote so that we can get this moving on and go ahead and vote on it.
Commissioner, the question is your motion to approve what?
Thank you.
Motion to approve that we go ahead and vote on the city property of having a market is what I'm trying to vote on. What commissioner from the District 7 opposed?
Okay. All right, Commissioner from the 7, you want to step in and?
Yeah, I think, I appreciate the support and everything. I think, the motion, I believe, is like support the administrator's recommendation of the committee to work together, but at the same respect, could come back quicker with an idea of what to do for the market. The group, I have no problem. I think it's a great group of people to meet because there's other things that we need to put in place, but there is a time sensitive of the market. So could we at least get that to come back in 2 weeks to really see kind of what that plan is? And I guess to make sure they go ahead and meet would be the motion as a group.
Oh, committee cycle is next week.
Yeah, so reason it's not on the committee is two things. Number one, I wasn't here last week. And number two, I feel like this is it's time sensitive. And
And that's what I'm saying, Commissioner. It's right.
All right,
next
so
week.
everybody hold on, everybody suspend. All right, everybody suspend. I'm gonna go in this order. I'm gonna go in this order. All right, the commissioner from the 8th had his hand back up. I'm going to the 4th, and then I'll go to the 6th.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I'm going to waive in reference to what the commissioner from the 7th said. Let's just do this in committee. If we're going to vote this up or down today, I think the motion should be basically to, get a plan in place by next week or by the next committee cycle that we can actually have a discussion about as Commissioner Sias recommended.
Okay, all right. Is that included in the original motion?
No, sir.
I didn't think so.
That's up to the commissioner from the 3rd.
If we could withdraw the substitute motion, and Mr. Sias need a second to his motion to refer to the Public Services Committee, I think that'll get,
next week.
yeah, Commissioner Fenner where he needs to go.
I never heard a substitute motion, but that's a new one. I didn't think we had an original other than the commissioner from the 3rd's motion.
No, it failed for lack of a second. I didn't hear the second.
No, the commissioner from the 10th who seconded her motion.
He seconded.
No, Mr. Sias's motion.
I second Commissioner Sias' motion.
I was attempting to make it,
There
Mayor.
was no second.
You cut me off again.
Yeah, that was no
Not
second.
intentionally, I don't believe.
Yeah, there was no second. All right, so
Seeing a pattern,
here's what
Commissioner
we'll do. Here's what we'll do. All right, Commissioner from the 3rd, if you'll withdraw your motion, and the commissioner from the 10th, if you'll withdraw the second. I think there's an appetite with clarification from the administrator and the commission from the 7th that on next week at the special call meeting, if there's a draft proposal ready to be presented, we can address that and not have an additional delay beyond the 23rd. That gives us time to mobilize in the event that there's a draft proposal that could potentially be adopted in the special call meeting. And I think that effectively accomplishes all of what's being discussed here with the time sensitive nature.
I'm agreeable to that.
Okay.
I'll go with that.
All right. All right, very well.
So move.
Second.
Third.
Fourth.
Nobody told me. I thought I had my
voting.
That was Nico.
Mr. Clark,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Franham,
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett.
What do we vote on?
Has the item placed on the
I
special
vote
call
yes.
meeting for February of next week, next Tuesday.
Yes.
Mr. Garrett, Mr. Son,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That motion carries unanimously. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right.
Item 27.
Next up, on the invite to committee.
That's fine.
I beg your pardon.
Item 27.
Item 27, quarterly update from J. Mark Mortar on the state of public art in Augusta. The update includes updates on current projects such as the Augusta Sculpture Trail, Storm Drain Murals, and Art City Festival, and the Downtown Mural Festival.
Thank you,
What
Madam
number we're
Clerk.
on, Ms. Bonner?
All right, where is Mr. Mark Walter?
Item number 27.
Okay, there he is. Item 27, Mr. Martin.
The
Jay,
number is on the next page, the item, agenda item.
the
above.
caption is on the successive page.
Yeah.
All right. Jay, if you would, provide us with your update.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Can you hear me okay through the mask?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe we have a presentation to queue up for you. And while that's getting ready, thank you again, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission. And since we were with you last, I want to say congratulations and welcome to our new commissioners. And we look forward to working with all of you and 2021 and beyond. And as promised, and part of our agreement actually with you is to bring more reporting and quarterly reports and updates to you about public art as the Greater Augusta Arts Council implementing the master plan, your 2017 adopted master plan for the city as your public arts agency. And we like to remind, we were designated your public arts agency in 2012. Again, I'm Jay Markwalter. I'm in a volunteer capacity, serving as chair of the Public Art Advisory Panel. We advise and work with several of your city departments, and we're grateful for the support as we execute the master plan. And do we have the presentation? Okay. Before we offer this report, I do want to just mention again, I am a local Augustan. I live on Almond Place East, and I serve a statewide role as the executive director for Georgia's Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus. So my colleague here is the great Benish Brown. I've mentioned before, we're excited to have him back in the Southeast and in Georgia, and specifically in Augusta, Richmond. So I work with Benish and his colleagues across the state. And currently, as we take a look at the economic impact of the visual arts in the community, we celebrate tourism, hospitality, and the arts as an overall impact. And Mr. Mayor, you were with us for the ribbon cutting a couple Saturdays ago, as several other commissioners were there. And I appreciate all of the remarks that were made, along with Director McDowell with Recreation and Parks, about the importance of public art and what it brings to the community. Next slide, please. We're going to be back with you quarterly, so we'll hit the highlights and take just a few minutes. We have added a few new slides, and then we have some updates on some ongoing projects. And next slide, please. This presentation is also available to you, and will live on our website. But one thing we did want to always mention is the importance of a culturally vibrant community. Of course, we focus a lot on the downtown district, our urban core, as well as all the districts in Augusta. But arts and culturally vibrant communities, without question, impact our local economy and lure and entice private investment. We never know when people are making windshield surveys or mystery shopping our community. There are beautification elements to public art, and there's certainly local pride as residents. Next slide, please. And as Commissioner Frano mentioned, that there was a number mentioned in the specific downtown district. We do want to point out, while your Downtown Development Authority reported we were down over 1 million visitors just in the downtown district, these are not the total numbers that the Augusta Convention and Visitors Bureau and Mr. Brown and his team would report for overall Richmond County impact of the virus that we've had. I can report to you that statewide and industry-wide in tourism, that we have finally surpassed with optimism the pessimism for travel. Traveler sentiment is coming back with the rollout of the virus. With the rollout of the vaccine, excuse me. And we are encouraged by that, but we do have a long way to go. Leisure travel and new tactics needed for outdoor activity and outdoor fun, depending on the community and our product that we have to share and promote. Leisure travel is gradually coming back, and we know that group business, convention business, and especially the business traveler is the missing link and will be the last to come back. So new partnerships to showcase art and self-guided tours and highlight the diversity, cultural diversity of our community and arts and culture. We have to do this and invest, and that's why we're here, to showcase some of the new projects that are underway. Next slide, please. Mentioned the master plan. We leave this slide in there because it was developed in 2017. Again, this is our roadmap. Again, we have to work the plan the work and work the plan. So we're following that as our continued implementation. Next slide, please. In the public art panel, we like to show this slide to show the many different team members and skill sets, all of your departments. Again, we're grateful for the support. Want to mention again, Director McDowell and Bobby Martin and the team that are with us, Sean Edwards and John Ushery. Well, I shouldn't have started reading the list. We're grateful for all of those folks that are with us. And we have some new panel members there with us. We are in a nomination process for a 7th panel member to complete that. And again, I'm proud to chair this committee currently, the Public Art Panel on behalf of the Arts Council for the community. Next slide. And in exciting news, and the ribbon cutting again that we mentioned, this is a 2-year event. It's actually a sculpture festival. Hopefully you have seen these pieces or had a chance to do some of the tour already, but we were very excited to cut the ribbon and launch the 10 initial pieces. They are leased for a 2-year program. They are for sale, and we hope that businesses will even get involved and purchase permanent pieces. But public art can be temporary pieces, it can be permanent pieces throughout the community, indoor, outdoor. But this sculpture trail, again, working with Recreation and Parks, launched, and we had the ribbon cutting on the 6th, I believe, on Saturday the 6th. And the installment is complete with signs and signage about each piece, and they can scan the code and go to the next slide, please, to take walking tours. People are already doing this, taking photographs and gone viral with social media to showcase the art in Augusta with these first 10 pieces. Again, the AutoCast walking tour, and we have also with your mobile app, and then we have the Emory University sponsored. We shared with you last report, these were underway, but this is on the website, augustasculpturetrail.com. So we also hope you will visit the website and enjoy the tours virtually if you're not able to get out and enjoy. Next slide, please. Of course, my children's favorite. I don't think I'll be able to purchase this one for our backyard, but this is a family highlight of the popsicles. And this is one of the 10 pieces. You'll see this one happens to be on the Augusta Common and was a backdrop of our ribbon cutting ceremony a few weekends ago. On the website and on collateral handout materials, the map has been updated to show the actual pictures of where these pieces are located. And we also highlight the visitor center there at Augusta and Company at 1010 Broad, headquarters of the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Information Center there. Next slide, please. It's hard to believe it was October 27th that we had the James Brown mural ribbon cutting. And again, I want to point out as we travel across Georgia, and not just Georgia, but the Southeast or the entire US and really globally, mural art. This is such a great addition, not only to us for the Godfather of Soul, but the Spirit of Funk mural that is a highlight and already a backdrop all over social media with people coming to see this, adds to just Georgia's music heritage as well. Again, we mentioned, Otis Redding and Macon and Little Richard and the Allman Brothers and Ray Charles down in Albany. But what a great addition. And here is a quote from the Laziza Mediterranean Grill. And this is what it's all about, that the foot traffic of people enjoying the public art has impacted that cash register. So cash register ringing is capital T tourism, overnight guests, day visits. And we all know, as far as the visitor markets that we mentioned earlier, over 50% of people visiting Augusta are visiting friends and relatives. We know that there's medical tourism, we know that there's military and business activity, but visiting friends and relatives is a crucial element to those visiting our community. Next slide. Each report we want to mention, there is an actual gallery that the Arts Council organizes and puts together down in the municipal building here. So hopefully, if you've had a chance, this is on display downstairs right now by this artist, Billy S. Next slide. As well as an effort at 1010 Broad, there's a gallery there, rotating exhibits, as working with the Convention and Visitor Bureau team and local artists and the Arts Council to keep a gallery on site there where visitors and locals are gathering information about the community. Next slide. We shared this with you last month. We just had an exciting update that we have been able to go from 5 initial drain designs, again promoting litter-free and healthy bodies of water. With this, it all flows into Savannah. We're going to get to launch this with 12 designs now, and we've had partners such as even Sherwin-Williams coming to the table. In each of these slides, we like to show in the top left corner all of the different partners it takes. Next slide. This is a new slide to share with you, and we have the funding for two of these to launch first. You may have seen this in other communities and some other downtown districts. This is not only a beautification project, but for some of our vacant storefronts would draw some attention to available real estate for potential retail businesses to take a look. And of course, we're working with the Downtown Development Authority on this project. We are already working on grants to try and add to this mural project. This is actually plywood that would be covering some of the vacant storefronts in the immediate downtown district. Next slide, please. Part of the master plan to add sculpture along the trail, we showed you a different slide last report. This is a whole new sculpture. This Rocky Shoal spider lily is a rendering of what it will look like. And since this slide was written, the location has been decided, working with the canal, of course, a national treasure, a national heritage area, that this sculpture will be placed also at the Mill Village Trail entrance there near the Croc Center. Next slide, please. The Golden Blocks project, now in phase 2, and we added a terrific photograph here of one of our Public Art Advisory Panel members, Corey Rogers, with the Lucy Laney Museum. This project in phase 1 brought attention with 4 artists doing projects to highlight the business community from the Golden Blocks. And this will be the phase 2 is to highlight the educational institutions celebrating the legacy of Augusta's historic Black neighborhoods through this public art. That map there, the mosaic map on the wall, that is actually mounted, if you've not seen that, at the Wallace Branch Library.
Jay, how many more slides do you have, sir?
This should be it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just an update here on the SPLOST 7 project. You will recall that we had presentations of some designs, public presentations, and we took a step back, working with you and Recreation and Parks and the Greater Augusta Arts Council got together at community centers and had 4 hearings, input gathering, community information, distribution about what gateway projects are, and we have communicated twice with procurement with Jerry Sams and waiting to hear back for the next step so we can get these first 2 gateway sculptures underway and really get this SPLOST 7 executed. Of course, this is just a photograph from another city, but the first 2 sites to be Sandbar Ferry Road and Alexander Drive. Next slide. And I'll end with this, Mr. Mayor. We are proud to support all public art, public and private. The projects certainly lure other private investment. We have, we've seen Jesse Norman School of Arts adding art around the community with the painted pianos and new sculpture and new murals. And we have now been able to put together a procedures so that others can come to the city and do their own projects. We needed some standard operating procedures on how to implement public art, and we were able to work with your teams and get that done. And other communities will use us as a model. So we thank you. We're proud to be doing this for you and implementing the master plan. With that, I'll go ahead and stop. We've used a lot of your time, and we're grateful for the agenda placement.
Thank you so much, Jay. We appreciate the presentation. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jay, thank you for the presentation. Let me just say that the sculptures, it was put into the budget in 2019 for $100,000, just so the commission knows, for those sculptures. And I think it's important that we look in next year's budget, because it is a 2-year sculpture, that we look at 2022 for additional $100,000 to increase the sculpture into different areas, not just in downtown, but to increase it, because it is phenomenal to walk around with your cell phone and learn about those sculptures. Also, Administrator O'Donnell, number one, the gateway sculptures, what you can do to help us support that. I think it's important that it gets back in front of the commission, because there's a lot of energy for it. There's a lot of energy for art right now. But also these sculptures, there is a cost to them. And I think that this commission, because it's on a 2-year cycle, these sculptures, I think it's going to be around $290,000 to $300,000. I think we really need to look at possibly purchasing some of these sculptures in the future, and how because you don't want the base just to be there without a sculpture, and seeing if there's SPLOST dollars that we possibly could repurpose, or if there's some of the gateway money that we might not utilize totally going towards the sculptures as well. Because again, art is growing in this community, and just want to say thank you to everybody that made this happen, and look forward to having future discussions on how we can increase it and enhance what we already have started. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think those are great comments, and I certainly have been extremely pleased with the sculptures. The unveil that we had just a week or so ago were phenomenal, and this really sets the tone for any conversations we have around the gateway sculptures. We did this right. Jay, kudos to you and the team, to Brun and that entire team. We did this right, and it's really exciting for our community, and they look great, those that are on the commons and at the other locations. So let's continue with that passion and energy around that. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, in light of what your comments and well as my colleagues from the 7th, I'd rather see, because we had so much controversy around the ones that have been supposed to be placed at the major intersections. I think out of the SPLOST, the previous SPLOST, I think there was about $1 million, I think, was allocated, if I'm not mistaken. First, let me make sure that that number is correct before I proceed to say anything. Is that number correct by the previous committee? By the rate of $1 million. And so as opposed to considering going into our budget next year, I know we're ahead of a conversation because we hadn't gotten there yet. I'd rather see us do something different then, because as you know, when they brought in artwork in, I think the public was displeased. I don't mean you're going to be able to please everybody. So we can do something different with that money, as opposed to make a commitment to allocate more money in the upcoming budget. I'd rather see us take a shot at that, which wouldn't be $1 million at this point, and maybe in the neighborhood of about $750,000, and look at that as opposed to potentially allocate money in the upcoming budget, especially to the tune of $250,000.
Commissioner from the 6th, thanks for that comment as well. I think, again, as we look at the requirements of how and when we use those SPLOST dollars, that be incorporated, it's certainly appropriate, as the Commissioner from the 7th has indicated, for us to, again, do a deep dive into how we allocate those resources. But without question, there is broad energy and support from the community about the sculpture art trail And this is a way for us to change that narrative of what was going on with the gateway sculptures and turn it into a very positive, or as they say, this is that moment where we're now able to turn lemons into lemonade with this conversation. And couldn't come at a better time. And so maybe the approach is to, again, have the administrator working with our Recs and Parks team and our Arts Council team to identify how best to use those dollars. You know, we're going through this conversation around procurement, but that's probably a better way for us to address it using this model and accomplish the same thing. So maybe that's the approach that the commission wants to have the administrator take. I see heads bobbing and weaving like a Sugar Ray Leonard fight. So is that a resounding yes?
Let's look at the legality of that, Mr. Mayor, before we do.
Well, that's why I said have the administrator take a look at it.
Okay.
We can address all of those, especially around the SPLOST statutory requirements.
Okay.
And then come back to us at our next committee meeting. All right, fantastic. Jay, thank you.
Thank you.
Administrator Donald, are you tracking that conversation?
Yes, sir. We'll be prepared. We've got our notes on it here, so we'll be prepared for it at the next week's meeting.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, Madam Clerk, we are down to our final items.
Item 28. Discuss authorizing the administrator's central service and other relevant departments to conduct a 60-90-day review of transitioning our non-public safety vehicle fleet to zero-emission vehicles, electric, and any associated apparatuses.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mayor.
I wanted to bring this item forward to the commission. Again, this is just a discussion. And as we talk about this, there have been several major announcements in less than a month's time. The White House, as part of their comprehensive plan to create jobs, not only jobs, but good jobs, and to stimulate clean energy industries. They issued an executive order that essentially moves forward procuring electric vehicles as it replaces or expands its government fleet. General Motors subsequently made an announcement that they are moving towards creating all zero emission vehicles by 2035. And then Ford made an announcement investing $22 billion in electric vehicles, up from approximately $10 billion that they previously had pledged. The item that's in front of us today is nothing more than a request for the commission to authorize the administrator and his team to conduct a review of 60 to 90 days of what it would take for us to transition our non-public safety fleet vehicles to zero emission vehicles and any associated needs that would include charging stations, training, and bring back something to us. Again, it's a request to authorize the administrator and his team to conduct the review. All right, so I wanted to share that. It certainly allows us to start a conversation in Augusta that puts us steps ahead of other communities as we're giving conversation to the mobility challenges and needs of what's going on in our city. We're going to recognize the commissioner from the 6th and then the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I think one of the things that we want to accomplish, especially our new commissioners on board, and I think there's some good information here in terms of what you got in 28, but we want to try to send this back so we can have a full-blown discussion back to the committee cycles, not only just 28, 29, and I hate, but 30 as well, so we can have a full-blown discussion at the committee level, because what we really don't want to do is have these commission meetings no longer than need be. I think much earlier in terms of what we did around the planning issue, we can't get around those type of things when they come up, but these type of issues, these discussions and things, for all intents and purposes, short of when they emergency situations, that we should, go through the committee process. And I make a motion that 28, 29, and 30 go back to the committee cycle.
but we're only addressing item number 28. You certainly can do that at the point in time that we bring 29 and 30 up, but let me go back to the conversation, Commissioner Song. This is not trying to solve anything. This is a request to authorize the administrator to do a review. What you're suggesting is, let's go have a conversation in committee to authorize the administrator to then do a review. That's all we're saying today, that this is a conversation, have the administrator and his staff conduct a 60 to 90 day review. We're not making any decisions other than doing a review. But what you're now proposing is, let's go into committee on next week and let's have a discussion about whether we want to authorize the administrator to do it or not.
And
We're not doing any work.
But yeah, because and I think that is true, because we may not even want to get involved with electric vehicles for all intents and purposes. It gives us an opportunity to do that. So we just want everybody, all of us to go through the committee process. Even number 30 is mine as an item that I have on the agenda. So I'm including that as all, for sake of time, 28, 29, and 30 to send them back to the committee. And that's I made a motion. I think I have a second on the table. And that's all. I understand your point, but that's what we're trying to do it the way it should be done, Ms. Smith, even myself included.
Second that motion.
All right, Commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it not true that years ago you signed a resolution stating that by a certain year, our city would be green? And isn't this a positive step in trying to achieve that?
I believe that is absolutely true. Like over 450 cities across the country were part of the whole Paris Climate Agreement conversation. But more importantly, we're talking about good jobs. In the city of Augusta, it's been suggested that 85 to 90% of our nation's low-speed vehicles are made right here in Augusta. These are electric vehicles, whether it's the vehicles at Club Car, Ingersoll Rand, whether it's the vehicles at Easy Go, the John Deere tractors. Those vehicles are made in our community, and those are good jobs. We're putting people to work on a day-to-day basis. And once again, the request that's in front of us is simply a discussion around authorizing the administrator, central services, and other relevant departments to do nothing more than conduct the 60-day review of what it would take to transition our non-public safety vehicles to zero emission. And then that would be an appropriate conversation to have in committee to talk about what that looks like, how to move forward with that. Is that something that the city of Augusta wants to do from a jobs creation standpoint? And that same thing holds true around item number 29, since the commission from the 6th has raised it. Most recently, the commission made a decision to support small businesses in this community with CARES Act relief. That was a conversation where it was much debated. And we see even now in our city, where there are, in fact, good landlords who are providing workforce housing and affordable housing to our constituents who have not evicted people. And every time we've had meetings since the beginning of January to now, we've talked about how can we bolster and stand up small businesses in our city. And once again, even with item number 29, it's simply asking the commission to discuss authorizing the administrator, finance, and other departments to just do a review and then bring back to committee the information that they've identified so that we can have a robust discussion. That's the intent. As opposed to saying, let's go to committee and talk about whether we should do it. That's why we were putting it on the agenda now.
Then may I make a substitution, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you may.
I'd like to make a substitute motion dealing with, since we're dealing with 28, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we go ahead and approve item 28.
You're muted, Ms. McKnight.
I said I'll second that.
Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner from the 8th.
I was wondering if you're going to skip over me again. Starting to feel like Commissioner Sias. Thank you, Mayor. In regards to this item that we're discussing, I I concur with my colleague from the 10th about, you know, the direction that our city needs to go. But as we're voting on these matters, let us not just be focused, you know, solely on electric. A couple of years ago, we built 2 natural gas facilities that I believe that our city vehicles should be utilizing. You know, we invested quite a bit to get that done, and I think that it's a great resource. It's clean burning, and it's abundant. So as we're having this conversation, whether we're doing it now or in committee next week, let's remember that as well.
I agree with the commissioner from the 8th, especially
Absolutely.
with our natural gas. That's when we talked about purchasing our most recent fleet of buses, that was one of those conversations that came up at that time.
And can I ask you a question, Mayor?
Absolutely.
So just in reading this, you were talking about transitioning our public safety fleet, or not our public safety, our non-public safety fleet. Are you talking about changing over the current vehicles we have, or are you just mainly suggesting as we acquire new vehicles, focusing on other fuels?
Again, it's as we transition, if you'll note, we talk about it in the caption. It says to conduct a 60 to 90-day review of transitioning our non-public safety fleet to zero emission. That's as we move forward. Once again, I wasn't trying to solve it today, but simply getting commissioner support to authorize the administrator, central services, and other relevant departments to do a review, and then come back to us so we can have that broad conversation and discussion in committee. That's all.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner from the 6th.
No, I'm fine, Mr. Mayor. There's a motion on the floor. I got a second.
Okay. All right, we've got a substitute motion.
Okay.
We got a substitute motion, Madam Clerk, with a proper second.
Is to approve item 28. Mr. Clark,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Franna,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Sun,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Miss McKnight,
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sias,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
That motion carries 7-3 with Mr. Hassan, Mr. Sias, and Mr. Bobby Williams voting no.
Item 29, Madam Clerk.
Item 29 is.
Madam Clerk, before you proceed, well, it's not my item, it's the commissioner from the 6th item, number 29.
Item 29, discuss authorizing administrative, finance department, and other relevant departments to conduct a 30-day review of impact, feasibility, and cost up to a 15% fiscal year 21 tax break to coincide with federal and state eviction moratoriums for landlords providing workforce and affordable housing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Again, the caption speaks for itself. As we've said, this is nothing more than asking the administrator, finance, and other relevant departments to conduct a 30-day review of the impact, bring that back to committee of what it potentially, the impact could be for up to 15% FY21 tax break to coincide with the federal and state eviction moratoriums for landlords who have not evicted individuals and are providing workforce and affordable housing. All of us are fully aware of, over the course of the pandemic, we've assisted residents in this community with this, especially as it relates to keeping people in their homes. We recently approved crucial emergency financial assistance to families who were at risk of not only losing their homes, but on the verge of homelessness. And so the request in front of us is simply for support that an analysis be done by the administrator and his designees what the impact would be if we were in fact to provide a tax break, a property tax break for the landlords who have not evicted individuals and providing workforce and affordable housing. I do want to take a moment and pause. I want the administrator to clarify what we mean when we say affordable or workforce housing, and then we'll hear from the commission. All right.
Mayor, I think you hit the nail right on the head there, is that as we look at this, I don't believe, or at least to my recent research since I've joined, that we have defined or given a definition for Augusta for affordable housing, whether that's going to be 30% of AMI or 80% of AMI or somewhere in between. And so this review, if it is the will of the commission, we might be able to determine that and make a recommendation during that time. So I think it aligns with the things that the commission has put in place. And if it is the will of the commission, then we would do the work to do that. I do think it may take a little bit longer than 30 days, maybe 45, since we just authorized to do the additional review under central services. So to make sure we can balance the workload, I would humbly ask for a little bit more time to make sure that we hit it.
Yeah, that's certainly not a problem. All right, I'm going to go in this order. Commissioner from the 8th, then the 6th, and the 1st.
Thank you, Mayor. I make a motion that we divert this back to committee for next week.
Second.
Second.
Third.
Okay. Anyone else? Voting.
Mr. Clark,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Franham, yeah, he's out. Mr. Garrett,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Son,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sias,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
That motion carries with Mr. Franham out to refer this item to committee.
Mr. Mayor,
State inquiry, Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem.
may I go ahead and make a motion that we send 30 back to committee next week?
Sure.
Second.
Voted.
Item number 30, Mr. Clark,
Abstain.
Lord have mercy.
Mr. Franham, out. Mr. Garrett,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Son,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sias,
Ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carries with Mr. Clark abstaining and Mr. Franham out to refer item number 30 to committee.
Item number 36, Madam Clerk.
Item 36, approval of a resolution being drafted and brought back before the commission for a vote on 224 in opposition to Georgia Senate Bill 67, 68, 69, 71, 73, 74, and other bills aimed at restricting methods available to Augusta residents to exercise their right to vote or cause undue financial burden on voters.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Several weeks ago, the commissioner from the 4th appropriately requested and received support from everyone for a resolution commending our elections director, Lynn Bailey, and her team at the Board of Elections. Their work during this global pandemic was significant in allowing Augustans, good Georgians, to be able to exercise their vote not only safely, but more importantly, to do it in a way that powered our state to the most significant turnout in our history. While that's true, the legislature came back and members of the Senate drafted a series of bills that are being debated that not only add undue cost to obtaining ballots, but restrict voter access. And they impede the work of organizations that have done this type of work, making sure that people have fair and equal access to the ballot. And so what we're asking the commission to do is support for a resolution to be drafted and brought back before the commission for a vote that is in opposition to Georgia Senate Bills 67, 68, 69, 71, 73, and 74, that in one way or another, that instead of us being able to move our city and our state forward and allowing people fair, just, and equal access to the ballot, they do everything to impede that progress, in effect, have the effect of suppressing voters' access to the ballot, and they move us backwards. It's the equivalent of us going from Wi-Fi to dial-up, from cell phones to the rotary dial phone. And so, again, a simple request for a resolution to be drafted on behalf of the commission that we then transmit to the General Assembly and the governor's office in opposition to these bills.
Mr. Mayor.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to go to the commissioner from the 4th.
Thank you.
And I'll come back to you.
Thank you. And then due to the fact that these bills are already in progress, are being either discussed or in committee or whatever, I move to approve that we do this because I think this is critically important to all of Georgia and particularly the city of Augusta. Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Item number 36, motion by Mr. Sayas, seconded by Mr. Hassan, is to approve item number 36. Mr. Clark.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Franham.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Garrett.
Yes.
Mr. Hassan.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McKnight.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sayas.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bobby Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dennis Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I believe that's all the business before us today.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
All right, Commissioner from the 6th, State Inquirer.
Yes, on item 36, does this need to come back in a special call to go at that point, or we got time another week?
I couldn't agree with you more. That would be even more appropriate to come back, just as we did with the previous item, and add it to the agenda for our special call meeting.
Can you actually make a motion? They're fine with that? The commission, we voted on already. But since he said time sensitive, and I agree, do we need to my question, colleagues, is do we need to have the resolution ready at the special call meeting next week so it can go on up there, since you said they're in discussion about these matters?
Yeah, we can add it.
All right, so
It's
all right, we have consent. We have consent. All right. All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.